Alex Morrison froze in the showroom of his own motorcycle dealership, the gleaming Ducati he was pretending to consider blurring before his eyes as he listened to the heated conversation behind him. What these two customers were describing couldn't be happening in his company, yet as the CEO of VelocityMoto, North America's largest motorcycle retail chain, he knew that the systematic fraud they were detailing was just the tip of a far more dangerous conspiracy that would soon threaten not just his company, but lives. Alex Morrison studied his reflection in the tinted windows of VelocityMoto's flagship store in downtown Los Angeles, barely recognizing himself. The tailored suits and designer watches that had become his uniform as CEO were replaced by worn leather riding boots, faded jeans, and a vintage motorcycle jacket he'd pulled from the back of his closet. His usually clean-shaven face now sported 3 days of stubble, and his meticulously styled silver hair was hidden beneath a weathered bandana. The transformation was perfect. No one would connect this rough-around-the-edges biker with the polished executive whose portrait hung in every one of their 200 dealerships across the country. Taking a deep breath of the crisp morning air, he pulled his fake credentials from his pocket one last time. According to his carefully crafted cover identity, he was Mark Anders, a middle-aged construction foreman looking to get back into riding after a decade-long break. His documentation showed a solid credit score, steady employment history, and enough income to qualify for financing on a mid-range bike. Exactly the kind of customer VelocityMoto's salespeople should be falling over themselves to help. But something was very wrong at his company. Over the past 6 months, customer satisfaction scores had plummeted across their entire network. Social media was flooded with complaints about aggressive sales tactics, hidden fees, and bikes that didn't match their advertised conditions. Most worrying were the whispers about safety issues being covered up, crucial maintenance records vanishing, accident histories being scrubbed clean, recall notices never reaching customers. The board was breathing down his neck, demanding explanations, and threatening to remove him if things didn't improve quickly. Alex had launched internal investigations, hired consultants, and implemented new oversight measures. Nothing had revealed the root of the problem. That's when he realized he needed to see for himself what customers were experiencing. Pushing open the heavy glass doors, Alex was struck by how different the showroom felt from this perspective. Instead of being whisked to the manager's office for VIP treatment, he stood among the gleaming motorcycles, just another customer on a busy Saturday morning. The familiar space felt almost alien, the overhead fluorescent lights casting harsh shadows across the bike's chrome finishes, the air heavy with the chemical smell of cleaning products and new leather. He observed the sales floor dynamics with new eyes. A young couple was being steered away from the modestly priced Kawasaki they'd been admiring toward a much more expensive Harley-Davidson. An elderly man in riding leathers argued with a service advisor about charges on his repair bill that hadn't been disclosed up front. A first-time buyer looked overwhelmed as a salesperson rapidly rattled off technical specifications and financing terms, pushing for a quick decision. "Can I help you find anything?" a voice interrupted his observations. Alex turned to face Todd Maxwell, one of their top-performing salespeople. He'd approved Todd's promotion himself just last year, impressed by his record-breaking sales numbers. Now, seeing the predatory gleam in Todd's eyes as he sized up a potential commission, Alex felt a chill run down his spine. "Just browsing, for now," Alex replied, adopting the slight southern drawl he'd practiced for his cover identity. "Been a while since I've been in the saddle, looking to get back into it." "Well, you've come to the right place." Todd's smile widened as he launched into his pitch. "We're running a special promotion today. 0 down, 0 interest for 12 months on select models. Why don't I show you something that would really make your friends jealous?" Before Alex could respond, raised voices from the service department caught his attention. Two customers were engaged in an intense discussion, their words carrying clearly across the showroom. "I'm telling you, something's not right here," a muscular man in his 30s was saying, gesturing at a sleek sports bike on a repair lift. "I bought this Ninja from them 3 months ago. They swore it was in perfect condition, never been down. Now my mechanic tells me it's got frame damage from a serious crash. They must have covered it up with a cheap repair job." His companion, an older woman in full riding gear, nodded grimly. "You're lucky you caught it before the frame failed at high speed. My daughter wasn't so fortunate. The bike she bought here had supposedly just had a full safety inspection. 2 weeks later, the front brake line burst while she was on the freeway. She's still in physical therapy." Alex felt his stomach tighten. As CEO, he'd implemented strict policies about vehicle history disclosure and safety inspections. Every bike was supposed to go through a rigorous 150-point check before being certified for sale. If someone was circumventing these protocols, they were putting lives at risk. Look, I can tell you're a serious buyer." Todd's voice pulled Alex back to the present. "Why don't we head to my office and talk numbers? I'm sure we can find a way to get you on the bike of your dreams today." Alex followed Todd, his mind racing. He needed to hear more of that conversation about the crashed bikes, but he also knew he had to maintain his cover. As they passed the service department, he caught another snippet of dialogue that made his blood run cold. "My brother works at their warehouse," the muscular man was saying in a lower voice. "Says they've got a whole system for making damaged bikes look clean on paper. Someone high up is cooking the books, making a fortune by flipping wrecked bikes to unsuspecting buyers." Sitting down in Todd's office, surrounded by sales awards and motivational posters, Alex barely heard the rehearsed pitch about extended warranties and protection plans. His simple undercover mission to investigate customer service issues had just revealed something far more sinister. But who was behind it, and how deep did the corruption really go? His phone buzzed, a notification from VelocityMoto's financing app about the pre-approval application he'd submitted yesterday as part of his cover. His heart skipped a beat as he read the message. "We regret to inform you that your application has been denied." Alex stared at the screen in disbelief. He'd deliberately created an impeccable application that should have been approved instantly. The pieces were starting to form a disturbing pattern. Doctored bike histories, covered-up accidents, suspicious loan denials. This wasn't just about aggressive sales tactics or poor customer service. Something systemic was corrupting his company from the inside out. "Look, Mr. Anders," Todd leaned forward, his cologne overwhelming in the small office. "Your credit score is solid, but our system is flagging some irregularities. However," he lowered his voice conspiratorially, "I might know a way to get this approved. It would involve some creative paperwork and a small processing fee. Cash only, of course." Alex felt his jaw clench. Loan fraud, too? Before he could respond, a commotion erupted in the showroom. The muscular customer from earlier, Alex could now see Mike, embroidered on his riding jacket, was confronting the service manager, waving a stack of papers. "These service records are forged," Mike's voice carried through the glass walls. "I had an independent mechanic run the VIN. This bike was in a documented total loss accident in Nevada 6 months ago. You cleaned up the cosmetics, faked the paperwork, and sold it to me as factory certified. You could have killed me." 2 security guards approached, but Mike stood his ground. "I'm not leaving until I get answers. My brother at the warehouse says there are dozens more bikes like this. He showed me photos of your restoration facility. It's nothing but a chop shop for salvage bikes." Alex watched as the service manager, Dave Reeves, maintained an impressively calm demeanor. "Sir, I assure you there must be some mistake. All our bikes go through rigorous certification. If you'd like to file a formal complaint..." A complaint. Mike's companion, the older woman, stepped forward. Like the 3 complaints I filed about my daughter's brake failure? The ones that mysteriously disappeared from your system? Todd cleared his throat, drawing Alex's attention back. Should we discuss those alternative financing options? I need some time to think about it, Alex replied, standing up. He needed to hear more about this warehouse facility. As CEO, he knew every VelocityMoto property, but a restoration facility handling salvage bikes. That wasn't on any official records. Making his way toward the service department, Alex's phone vibrated. A text from an unknown number. Stay out of the certification records. Some bikes are better left unexamined. A chill ran down his spine. Only someone with high-level access would know he'd been remotely accessing certification databases last week. His cover identity couldn't have triggered this warning. They must be watching his executive credentials, too. Near the service counter, Mike was still arguing, but Alex's attention was drawn to a conversation between 2 technicians in the repair bay. Another rush job from the Phoenix facility, one was saying, examining a sport bike's frame. Third one this week. They're getting sloppy with the VIN swaps. Better be careful talking about that, his colleague warned. Remember what happened to Ray when he started asking questions? Who's Ray? Alex asked casually, pretending to examine a nearby motorcycle. The technicians exchanged nervous glances. New guy. Worked quality control, the first one finally answered. Started digging into our certification process. Had an accident on his way home one night. Bike's brakes failed, just like that girl they're talking about. Alex's heart raced. Ray Martinez. He remembered signing off on the hiring 6 months ago. Young, ambitious, with a background in vehicle safety inspection. His resignation letter had cited personal reasons. Moving away from the technicians, Alex pulled out his phone and searched news archives. There it was. Ray Martinez, motorcycle, accident, 3 months ago. Listed as equipment failure, case closed with minimal investigation. A new text message popped up. Martinez asked too many questions. So did Thompson in accounting. Walk away while you can. Thompson, Sarah Thompson, had been their regional accounting director, responsible for auditing vehicle inventory and sales. Records. She died in what was ruled a home invasion 2 months ago. Alex felt the weight of his discovery crushing down on him. This wasn't just fraud. It was murder. Someone was using his dealerships to run a sophisticated criminal operation, silencing anyone who got too close to the truth. The sound of approaching footsteps made him look up. Dave Reeves, the service manager, was walking toward him with 2 security guards. Sir, I'm afraid I'll have to ask you to leave, Reeves said smoothly. We've had some complaints about you asking inappropriate questions. Through the showroom windows, Alex spotted a black SUV pulling up outside, its tinted windows concealing the occupants. His phone buzzed one final time. Last warning, some doors are better left closed. But Alex Morrison hadn't built VelocityMoto from a single dealership into a national chain by backing down from challenges. People were dying on his watches, customers' lives being put at risk. As he walked toward the exit, his mind was already formulating a plan. He needed allies. The warehouse worker Mike had mentioned, he would be a start. Ray Martinez's accident report would need a closer look, and Sarah Thompson's files might hold crucial clues if he could access them before they disappeared. The black SUV followed him for 3 blocks before turning off. They were watching, but they didn't know who he really was. Not yet. Tomorrow, he would return as CEO Alex Morrison and begin pulling official records. But tonight, Mark Anders had some warehouses to investigate. The industrial district was deserted at midnight, the only sounds coming from distant freight trains and the occasional stray cat. Alex parked his rental car 3 blocks from the address he'd managed to track down. a warehouse registered to Phoenix Restoration Services, LLC. On paper, it was an independent contractor specializing in vintage motorcycle restoration. But after hours of digging through shell companies and property records, Alex had found a connection to VelocityMoto through 6 layers of subsidiaries. He was about to step out of the car when headlights swept past. A motorcycle pulled up nearby, a heavily customized Harley-Davidson Street Bob. The rider, still in full gear, walked toward the warehouse entrance, punching in a security code. Even with the helmet on, Alex recognized the build and gait. Mike, the angry customer from the dealership. Taking a chance, Alex approached. "Guess we're both looking for answers." Mike spun around, dropping into a defensive stance, but relaxed slightly when he recognized Alex from the showroom. "You're the guy who was asking about Ray. What's your real story? You're no ordinary customer." "Neither are you," Alex countered. "Your brother at the warehouse?" Mike removed his helmet, revealing a hardened face with a thin scar along the jawline. "Former Marine Corps investigator. Been tracking a motorcycle theft ring for 8 months. My brother is an informant, maintenance worker here. The crashed Ninja I bought was part of building my cover." He studied Alex carefully. "Your turn." Alex weighed his options. He needed allies, and Mike's military background could be valuable. "The company's CEO sent me to investigate irregularities off the books." It wasn't exactly a lie. "Well, your CEO's company is neck-deep in something ugly," Mike replied. "This facility, it's where they process stolen bikes. High-end machines get stripped for parts. Others get rebuilt with swapped VINs, fake histories, doctored safety certifications. My informant says they move about 20 units a week through here." Alex felt sick. 20 dangerous vehicles every week, sold to unsuspecting customers. The CEO had no idea, he said quietly, then caught himself. "I mean, from what I've gathered." "Oh, someone high up knows," Mike assured him. "This operation is too sophisticated. And for middle management, custom software that falsifies vehicle histories, high-level access to DMV databases, cooperation from multiple dealerships. This goes straight to the top." Before Alex could respond, his phone buzzed. A text from Lisa Chen, his head of IT security. "Someone's accessing executive server through Ray Martinez's old credentials, looking into certification records, tracing location now." A second message followed immediately. "Sir, detected unauthorized entry at Phoenix facility. Security feeds showing 2 individuals near loading dock. Initiating protocol." Alex's blood ran cold. Lisa was loyal. She'd helped him set up his undercover operation, but she was required to report security breaches to the executive board. If she followed protocol, armed security would be here in minutes. He quickly typed back, "Stand down, investigating lead, maintain surveillance only. Encrypt this exchange." "Your contact?" Mike asked, noticing his concern. "Something like that. We need to move fast. Your informant, what's his name?" "Eddie Ruiz. Should be working tonight, but we've got another problem." Mike pointed to a security camera. "They've upgraded the system recently. State-of-the-art motion detection, facial recognition. Getting past that gate without being identified will be tricky." Alex smiled grimly. "The CEO insisted on standardized security across all properties. I know a back door." He pulled out his phone again, accessing an admin panel through a hidden server. The camera feeds flickered briefly. "We have 3 minutes before the system resets." They moved quickly to the loading dock. Alex's executive override codes still worked on the keypad, something he'd have to address later. Inside, the warehouse was dimly lit, rows of motorcycles in various states of disassembly stretching into the shadows. "Jesus," Mike breathed, examining a nearby sport bike. "This is Lauren Chen's Ducati Pro Racer. Died in a racing accident last month when her bike's frame supposedly failed. Looks more like intentional damage to me." Alex recognized the name. VelocityMoto had sponsored Jen's racing team. Her death had been all over the motorcycling press. They're not just endangering customers, he realized. They're eliminating threats. Mr. Morrison? A trembling voice called from behind a tool cabinet. I mean, Mark? They turned to find a young Hispanic man in maintenance coveralls. Eddie Ruiz, the informant. His face was bruised, blood staining his uniform. They know, Eddie gasped. Someone accessed Martinez's old files. They think I helped him before they killed him. Reeves was here an hour ago with some guys I've never seen. Professional types. They're cleaning house tonight. How do they know about Martinez's files? Mike demanded. Because I accessed them, Alex admitted. Through my executive credentials. Mike's expression hardened. You're executive. Who are you really? Before Alex could answer, the overhead lights blazed on. Dave Reeves's voice echoed through the warehouse. Welcome, Mr. Morrison. The board was wondering how long it would take you to find this place. Heavy footsteps approached from multiple directions. Professional hitsmen, just as Eddie had said. Through the rows of motorcycles, Alex caught glimpses of tactical gear and weapons. The famous Undercover CEO, Reeves continued, still unseen. Did you really think we wouldn't recognize your access patterns? Your own security chief has been watching your every move. The board thanks you for your service, but VelocityMoto is moving in a more profitable direction. Mike moved with military precision, pushing Alex and Eddie behind a heavy tool cabinet as the first shots rang out. The sound of bullets ricocheting off metal filled the warehouse. Some investigator I am, Mike muttered, pulling a compact pistol from his ankle holster. Should have known you were Morrison. The real question is, why didn't your own security chief warn you about this place? Because Lisa Chen doesn't work for me anymore, Alex realized, the pieces clicking into place. The board replaced her 3 months ago. They kept her title, her email. But I bet if we check, the real Lisa is either dead or being held somewhere. A new voice echoed through the warehouse, one that made Alex's heart stop. Always the clever one, little brother. You never could leave well enough alone. Victor Morrison stepped into view at the end of the aisle, impeccable in his tailored suit despite the late hour. Alex's older brother had vanished 2 years ago after a bitter fight for control of VelocityMoto's board. Their father had chosen Alex as CEO, leading to Victor's apparent mental breakdown and disappearance. You're supposed to be in a private facility in Switzerland, Alex called out, mind racing. During their last confrontation, Victor had ranted about modernizing the company, embracing what he called aggressive expansion strategies. Switzerland? Please. I've been right here, building something far more valuable than Father's precious, legitimate business. Victor's voice dripped with contempt. Do you know how much a high-end motorcycle is worth in parts? Triple what it brings in as a single unit. And when you control the dealership network, the supply chain, and the certification process. He spread his arms wide. The possibilities are endless. The stolen bikes, the parts trafficking. That was you, Alex demanded, trying to keep his brother talking while scanning for escape routes. Eddie had mentioned other men with Reeves, but they remained hidden in the shadows. Just the beginning, Victor replied. But you and your tiresome integrity were always going to be a problem. The board's been planning your removal for months. Finding you sneaking around in disguise just accelerated the timeline. The board, Mike whispered. How deep does this go? All the way to the top, Eddie murmured. I've seen the shipping manifests. They're not just moving parts. They're smuggling drugs inside gas tanks, weapons in sealed engine crates. VelocityMoto's entire distribution network has been turned into a pipeline for organized crime. Alex's phone buzzed, a message from Lisa's account. Remote access detected. System breach in progress. Someone else was in the company servers right now, probably erasing evidence. "You're killing people, Victor," Alex said, trying to keep his brother's attention while silently gesturing for Mike to circle around. Ray Martinez, Sarah Thompson, Lauren Chen, they were innocent people. "Acceptable losses," Victor shrugged. "This is business, Alex." Father never understood that. His obsession with legacy, with reputation, it was holding us back. The real money isn't in selling motorcycles to weekend warriors. It's in controlling the underground supply chain for an entire continent. By selling death traps to unsuspecting customers, that ninja could have killed Mike. The girl with the brake failure is still in therapy. A necessary part of maintaining cover, Reeves spoke up from somewhere to their left. Can't have too many stolen bikes disappearing into parts. Some have to be resold. If a few customers die in accidents, well, motorcycles are dangerous machines. Alex caught movement in his peripheral vision, more armed men emerging from the shadows, boxing them in. But he also spotted something else. A familiar red light blinking on the warehouse's sprinkler system. The same system installed in every VelocityMoto facility. "You've thought of everything, haven't you, Victor?" Alex said loudly, catching Mike's eye and glancing upward. "Except one thing, you're not the only one who knows this company's secrets." In one fluid motion, Alex drew the emergency flare he'd grabbed from his rental car and struck it against the cabinet. The magnesium flame blazed brilliant white as he hurled it toward the nearest motorcycle. The heat sensors triggered instantly, and the sprinkler system erupted, but instead of water, a thick foam descended. The specialized fire suppression system their father had insisted on installing to protect valuable inventory. Within seconds, visibility dropped to 0. "Night vision!" Victor shouted to his men. "Don't let them—" The rest was lost in the chaos that erupted. Mike moved with deadly efficiency in the foam-filled darkness, his military training evident. Alex grabbed Eddie and headed for the back exit he knew would be there. The building. Codes required it, and their father had been religious about compliance. Gunshots rang out behind them, muffled by the foam. Alex heard Victor screaming orders, followed by the sounds of men slipping and colliding in the blinding white cloud. They burst through the emergency exit into the cool night air. Mike appeared, beside them moments later, herding them toward his motorcycle. "We need to move," Mike said urgently. "Your brother's men will be around front in seconds." "I've got a safe house." "No," Alex cut him off, pulling out his phone. "I have something better. Victor's not the only one with friends in interesting places." He dialed a number he hadn't used in months. "Sandra, it's Morrison. Remember that favor you owe me? I need access to the FBI's secure server farm. Now." Mike raised an eyebrow. "FBI?" "Sandra Chang, special agent in charge of organized crime," Alex explained as they ran. "She consulted for us last year on anti-theft measures. Victor doesn't know about her involvement. More importantly, she can protect the evidence we're about to steal from those servers." Behind them, the warehouse door burst open. Victor's voice carried through the night. "Find them, and someone get on the phone with our friends at the police department. I want roadblocks." "Your brother seems nice," Mike commented dryly as they reached his Harley. "You should see him at Christmas," Alex replied, helping Eddie onto the bike. "Let's move. We've got servers to hack, a conspiracy to expose, and a company to save. And someone needs to check on the real Lisa Chen." As Mike's motorcycle roared to life, Alex looked back at the warehouse one last time. Through the windows, he could see figures moving in the dissipating foam, and he caught a glimpse of Victor's face, contorted with a rage he remembered all too well from childhood. His phone buzzed again. "Access granted. Server connection secure. Time window 30 minutes. Good luck, Morrison." The game wasn't over. It was just moving to a new playing field. The basement of Sandra Chang's safe house hummed with electronics. 3 high-end laptops were networked together, their screens displaying cascading lines of code as Eddie worked his magic. The maintenance worker's bruised face was illuminated by the blue glow of the monitors as his fingers flew across the keyboards. Your maintenance worker seems pretty comfortable with high-level cybersecurity, Alex observed to Mike, who was watching the perimeter through reinforced windows. Eddie was NSA before burning out, Mike explained quietly. Decided to go private sector, then stumbled onto your brother's operation. Been helping me gather intel ever since. VelocityMoto's servers are locked down tight, Eddie called over his shoulder. But they didn't account for Ray Martinez's credentials still having back-end access. He built most of their security architecture and left himself a few hidden doors. Alex's phone buzzed with another update from Sandra. Police chatter indicates Victor's people are searching a 10-mile radius. Got 3 corrupt precincts coordinating the effort. My clean contacts are running interference, but you've got maybe 2 hours before they find this location. On one screen, file directories began populating rapidly. Eddie let out a low whistle. Your brother's been busy. International shipping manifests, altered VIN databases, proof of connections to crime syndicates in 12 countries. They were using the dealership's legitimate transport network to move everything from drugs to weapons. Even human trafficking, hidden among the motorcycle shipments. Look for anything connected to the board members, Alex instructed, scanning the data. Especially Thomas Bedford. He chairs the finance committee, and I never understood why he backed Victor's initiatives so strongly. Umar got something, Eddie announced. Bedford's been laundering money through a network of shell companies. But here's the interesting part. The accounts trace back to a private military contractor called Phoenix Global. Mike's head snapped. Up Phoenix Global, you're sure? You know them. They're mercenaries, but high-level. Corporate warfare, regime change, industrial espionage. During my last deployment, we had a classified briefing about their operations. Your brother isn't just running a criminal enterprise. He's building a private army. A new window popped up on the central screen. Security camera feeds from VelocityMoto dealerships across the country. In each one, teams of men in tactical gear were efficiently removing computers and files. They're cleaning house, Alex realized, destroying evidence nationwide. Not destroying, Eddie corrected, pointing to timestamp data. Copying, then wiping. They're harvesting data about every customer who's bought a bike in the last 5 years. Medical records, financial information, personal details, everything from loan applications and service histories. Building a database of potential targets, Mike nodded grimly. People who've bought compromised bikes, perfect for blackmail, extortion, or worse. Alex's mind raced. How many thousands of customers were at risk? How many more people would die in accidents if their bikes had been deliberately compromised? A message flashed across Eddie's screen. Having fun with my toys, little brother? Did you really think Martinez's back doors were a secret? Say hello to the real Lisa Chen. The largest monitor switched to a video feed. Lisa Chen sat bound to a chair in what looked like an office, her usually immaculate appearance disheveled. A dark bruise marked her cheek. I'm sorry, Mr. Morrison, she said, her voice trembling. They caught me when I tried to warn you. Your brother. He's not just dealing in bikes anymore. Phoenix Global is planning something called Project Avalanche. The feed cut off abruptly. Trace it, Alex demanded. Working on it, Eddie's fingers blurred across the keyboard. Signal bounced through multiple proxies, but got it. That's the executive office at VelocityMoto Tower. My office, Alex said quietly. He's sitting in my office. Another message appeared. Time to choose, Alex. The evidence you're stealing, it includes proof of your own negligence. The board will blame everything on your poor oversight. You'll face criminal charges while we relocate and restart operations elsewhere. Or join us. Help us expand Project Avalanche. You always were the better strategist. He's trying to buy time, Mike warned. Security cameras show vehicles moving in the area. Police bands are active. Almost got the core files, Eddie reported, but there's something else. Project Avalanche isn't just about bikes or weapons. They're planning to use the compromised vehicles as remote-controlled weapons. The accidents were test runs. Alex felt the blood drain from his face. How many potentially compromised bikes are on the road right now? According to these shipping records, over 10,000 units. Each one equipped with what looks like a remote access control module disguised as standard electronic components. Sandra burst into the room. We've got company. Multiple vehicles approaching from the east. SWAT units, but they're not responding. To dispatch must be Victor's people using police resources. Evidence download at 89%, Eddie announced. Need 5 more minutes. We don't have 5 minutes, Mike replied, checking his weapon. Alex stared at the message from his brother still glowing on the screen. Victor was right about one thing. He had always been the better strategist. Sandra, can you get a message to every clean law enforcement agency within 500 miles? Already have a network standing by. Why? Because we're not going to hide this evidence, Alex smiled grimly. We're going to broadcast it. Eddie, forget the download. Upload everything, all of it. Every server, every news outlet, every regulatory agency. Let's see how Victor's friends handle 10 million eyes on their operation. Eddie's fingers paused. That would work. But you'll be implicated too. Your signature is on half these documents. Better to face the consequences than let them hurt more people. Do it. As Eddie initiated the upload sequence, the first explosion rocked the building. Victor's mercenaries had arrived. Time for the backup plan, Sandra announced, moving to a concealed panel in the wall. It slid aside to reveal a hidden garage, and within it, 4 sleek motorcycles. Clean bikes, untraceable, modified for pursuit scenarios. I had a feeling we might need them. Mike grinned. Now that's what I call planning ahead. The upload counter ticked upward as they prepared to move. 45%, 52%, 60%. Another explosion, closer this time, the sound of boots on the stairs. Once this goes public, there's no turning back, Alex warned them. Victor will be desperate. This could get ugly. Already is ugly. Mike checked his weapon again. Might as well make it worth it. 73%, 81%, 94%. The upload reached 97% as the first mercenaries breached the basement door. Sandra's modified Kawasaki Ninja H2 roared to life under Alex's hands, its matte black finish absorbing the emergency lights. The bike was a far cry from the compromised units in his dealerships. This was military-grade hardware with cutting-edge countermeasures. "Northeast Tunnel!" Sandra shouted over the engine noise, mounting her own bike. "It'll take us into the old subway maintenance system. Eddie, stay on that upload." Mike had already engaged the intruders, his military training evident as he provided covering fire. The basement erupted into chaos as bullets ricocheted off reinforced walls. Through his earpiece, Alex heard Victor's voice on the intercepted police band. "I want every exit covered. No one leaves this zone without verification." "Upload at 98%, Eddie called from behind his makeshift barricade of servers. "But we've got another problem. I'm seeing multiple remote access attempts on the compromised bikes. They're activating Project Avalanche early." Alex's blood ran cold. "Where?" "Everywhere. Los Angeles, Chicago, Miami. Any city with a VelocityMoto dealership. The control modules are coming online in waves. They're turning thousands of bikes into remote-controlled weapons." Through the gunfire, Alex's phone lit up with news alerts. Multiple motorcycle accidents reported simultaneously across major cities. Riders report complete loss of control, death toll rising as bikes veer into traffic. This is just the beginning, Sandra yelled, her FBI training showing as she returned fire while mounting her bike. Victor's sending a message. Try to expose us, and civilians die. The upload counter ticked to 99%. Eddie, bike, now, Mike ordered, providing suppression fire as the former NSA analyst sprinted to the fourth motorcycle. The basement door burst completely open, revealing tactical teams in full assault gear. You disappoint me, Alex, Victor's voice echoed through the chaos. I offered you a place at the table. Now you'll be remembered as the CEO who armed terrorists with remote-controlled vehicles. Your negligence made Project Avalanche possible. 99.3%, Eddie reported, his laptop now connected to his bike's onboard system. They're trying to crash the servers, but it's too late. The data's already propagating. Alex gunned his engine as bullets sparked off the reinforced fairing. The bike's heads-up display showed multiple hostile targets converging on their position, but it also showed something else. A rapidly expanding network of red dots across the city map, compromised bikes coming online one by one. The activation signal is coming from VelocityMoto Tower, Eddie shouted over the engine noise. Your office, Alex. The master control unit must be there. Then that's where we're headed, Alex replied. Sandra, we need a path. On it! The FBI agent triggered a sequence on her bike's console. Ahead, hidden panels in the basement wall slid aside, revealing a sloped tunnel. Maintenance access to the old subway system. It'll get us within 3 blocks of the tower. The upload hit 99.7% as they launched their bikes into the tunnel, the high-performance engines echoing off concrete walls. Behind them, Victor's men scrambled to follow. But Sandra's bike launched a final surprise, sophisticated ECM pods that scrambled their pursuers' equipment. They're switching to the surface, Mike reported through the comms. Multiple vehicles, moving to intercept above ground. The tunnel was a blur of emergency lights and shadows as they pushed the bikes to their limits. Alex's heads-up display showed more compromised bikes activating across the city. Each one a potential weapon, each rider an innocent victim. Eddie, can you disable the control modules remotely? Not without the master key from the control unit. But I can track activations. They're moving in patterns, creating chaos around specific targets. Police stations, federal buildings, transportation hubs. A coordinated attack, Sandra cut in. Create maximum chaos, overwhelm emergency services. While Phoenix, Global's teams move in to hit their real targets, Mike finished. Classic military strategy. The bikes are just a distraction. The upload counter flashed. 100% complete. Data disseminated. Alex's phone exploded with notifications as the evidence went public. News agencies, law enforcement, regulatory bodies, everyone was receiving proof of VelocityMoto's corruption. But it wouldn't matter if they couldn't stop Project Avalanche. They burst out of the tunnel into the pre-dawn city streets. The tower loomed ahead, its upper floors still lit despite the hour. But between them and their target, dozens of compromised. Bikes were weaving through traffic, their riders fighting for control as invisible signals commanded their machines. Alex, Victor's voice crackled through his earpiece. You've just exposed our operation to the world. The board is very disappointed, but we planned for this contingency. Look around you. This is just the beginning. Project Avalanche goes far beyond simple bikes. Every vehicle with modern electronic controls is vulnerable. Cars, trucks, planes. Imagine the possibilities. This ends now, Victor, Alex growled, swerving to avoid a compromised sport bike as it careened past. Oh, it's ending all right, but first a demonstration. Remember Lisa? She's about to take a very fast ride from the executive garage. I wonder how well she'll handle one of our special bikes. Through the pre-dawn darkness, a single motorcycle burst from the tower's parking structure, its rider's posture rigid with fear. Lisa Chen strapped to a remotely controlled machine. Time to choose, little brother, Victor taunted. Chase me up to the control room or save your friend. You can't do both. Alex's HUD tracked Lisa's bike as it accelerated uncontrollably toward a busy intersection. The tower's upper floors beckoned where Victor waited with the master control unit. One way or another, this nightmare had to end. "Mike, Sandra, get to that intersection and save Lisa," Alex commanded, banking his bike toward the tower. "Eddie, you're with me. We need your expertise on that control unit." "You can't take on Victor's security team alone," Mike protested, even as he changed course to intercept Lisa's runaway bike. "Watch me," Alex replied grimly. "Eddie, what's the fastest way to disable that control unit?" "Physical destruction is safest," Eddie's voice crackled through the comm. "Any attempt to hack it might trigger a dead man's switch, activating every compromised vehicle simultaneously. But we'll need to get past whatever security Victor's got up there." The tower's main entrance was obviously a trap. Alex gunned his engine toward the parking garage instead, remembering something from the building's original plans. Their father had insisted on a private executive elevator, one that bypassed normal security and went straight to the top floor. "Victor always hated that elevator," Alex muttered, "said it was Dad playing favorites again." They roared into the garage, bullets immediately pinging off their bikes' armored fairings as hidden mercenaries opened fire. Alex led Eddie through a complex series of turns, relying on years of muscle memory from late nights at the office. "Alex," Sandra's voice cut through the comms, "Lisa's bike is accelerating toward the intersection of 5th and Grand. Traffic cameras show at least 3 fuel tankers in the area. If that bike crashes into one of them, the explosion would devastate downtown," Eddie finished. "Classic terrorist strategy. Use the initial incident to trigger a bigger catastrophe." Alex's HUD showed more compromised bikes activating across the city, their riders fighting for control as the machines went rogue. Through the garage's open walls, he could see chaos unfolding on the streets below. They reached the executive elevator, its biometric scanner still active. Alex's handprint worked. Some small mercy that Victor hadn't gotten around to changing that yet. "Bikes won't fit," Eddie observed as the doors opened. "We're not taking the bikes." Alex pulled a compact device from his jacket, a gift from Sandra. "Grapnel launcher, old CIA tech. The elevator shaft leads straight up to my office." "Your brother's office now," Eddie reminded him, checking his tablet. "And he's got at least 8 armed men up there, plus whatever surprises Phoenix Global brought to the party." "Mike, status on Lisa?" Alex demanded as they stepped into the elevator, almost in position. "But Alex, there's something else. These bikes aren't just being controlled, they're gathering data. Every compromised unit is scanning its surroundings, mapping infrastructure, identifying targets." "Groundwork for a larger attack," Sandra cut in. "Phoenix Global is using our streets against us." The elevator doors closed. Alex pressed the button for the top floor, then shot out the control panel. "Eddie, what happens if Victor realizes he's about to lose and triggers everything at once?" "Conservative estimate, 5,000 compromised bikes across major cities, plus any vehicle they've secretly modified. Mass casualties, infrastructure damage, economic chaos." Eddie's fingers flew across his tablet. "Perfect conditions for whoever Phoenix Global is really working for." The elevator lurched to a stop 2 floors below their destination. Alex could hear movement in the shaft above, Victor's men preparing an ambush. Time for Plan B. He aimed the grapnel launcher at the maintenance hatch overhead. "We had a Plan B," Eddie asked nervously. "We do now." The grapnel punched through the hatch and kept going, rocketing upward through the shaft. Alex grabbed Eddie and hit the retract button. They shot upward as bullets tore through the elevator roof below them. They burst through the doors of the executive floor into chaos. Victor's security team had been ready for them to come up the elevator, not to swing in through the adjacent maintenance shaft. Alex's momentum carried them behind a marble pillar as gunfire erupted. "Beautiful view, isn't it?" Victor's voice carried from the CEO's office. "I can see the whole city from here, including that intersection where your friend Lisa is about to make quite an impact." Alex's earpiece crackled. 10 seconds to intercept, Mike reported, but there are 3 more compromised bikes converging on the same target. Through the armored windows, Alex could see the scene unfolding 20 stories below. Lisa's bike was weaving through traffic at terrifying speed, with Mike and Sandra in pursuit. But more rogue motorcycles were joining the deadly dance, their riders helpless, as the machines moved with orchestrated precision. "The control unit is in your old office," Eddie whispered, checking his tablet. "Signal strength is strongest there, but that hallway is a killing ground." Alex studied the layout he knew so well. The executive floor was designed to impress visitors. Lots of glass, marble, and open space. Beautiful but terrible for cover, except the ceiling, he murmured. Dad's paranoid building standards. Every floor has a maintenance crawl space for the environmental systems. Eddie followed his gaze to the decorative panels overhead. "Can you get us up there?" Another gift from Sandra answered that question. Ceramic thermite charges, perfect for cutting through steel and concrete. 5 seconds to impact! Mike's voice was tense. Alex triggered the charges. The ceiling exploded inward as he and Eddie grappled up, bullets following them into the darkness. They crawled rapidly through the cramped space, guided by Eddie's tablet showing the signal source. Below, they could hear Victor giving orders. "Find them and trigger the failsafe. If we're compromised, we take the whole city with us." 3 seconds! They reached the position above Victor's office. Through gaps in the panels, Alex could see his brother standing at the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the chaos below. The control unit sat on the desk, a sleek black box, sprouting cables and antennas. 2 seconds. "Sure you want to stop this, Alex?" Victor called out, not turning from the window. "Think of the power. Every vehicle a potential weapon, every traffic system a tool for control. Our father built an empire selling motorcycles. I'm building something far greater." 1 second. Alex met Eddie's eyes in the darkness. The technician nodded, fingers poised over his tablet. "Now!" Mike shouted through the comms. Multiple things happened at once. 20 stories below, Mike and Sandra executed a perfect synchronized maneuver, their bikes bracketing Lisa's runaway machine. Special cables shot out, entangling her wheels as electromagnetic pulses disabled the bike's electronics. They brought her safely to a stop meters from the fuel tanker. And above, Alex crashed through the ceiling onto his brother as Eddie launched a precisely targeted electromagnetic pulse at the control unit. Victor went down hard, but he managed to slam his hand on the failsafe trigger as he fell. Nothing happened. "Looking for this?" Eddie held up a crucial component he'd removed from the control unit during their crawl through the ceiling. "Dead man's switch needs all its parts to work." Victor lunged for his desk drawer, probably reaching for a weapon, but Alex was faster. Years of sibling rivalry had taught him his brother's moves. The fight was brief and decisive. "You've destroyed everything," Victor spat as Alex secured his hands. "Our legacy, our future." "No," Alex replied, looking out at the city where emergency teams were already responding to the chaos. "I just saved it." Through his earpiece, he heard Mike's welcome confirmation. "Lisa is safe. Other compromised bikes are going dark. It's over." But looking at the hatred in his brother's eyes, Alex knew it wasn't quite over. Victor had mentioned Phoenix Global's real masters. There would be others who wanted this technology, this power. The evidence they'd released would protect the public, but someone would have to rebuild VelocityMoto, restore trust, make things right. Dawn was breaking over the city as sirens wailed in the streets below. It was going to be a very long day. 3 days after the chaos at VelocityMoto Tower, Alex sat in a secure FBI conference room, surrounded by evidence boards and computer displays. The scale of Victor's operation was still unfolding. Every hour brought new revelations, each more disturbing than the last. Phoenix Global's servers were wiped before we could access them, Sandra reported, spreading more photos across the table. But we found this in your brother's private files. She pointed to surveillance images of meetings between Victor and various international figures. He wasn't just selling them the remote control technology, he was offering them VelocityMoto's entire distribution network. A ready-made system for moving people and materials across borders, Mike added. He'd officially been revealed as FBI Special Agent Michael Torres, though Alex still thought of him as Mike. The compromised bikes were just phase one. They were planning to expand to cars, trucks, even aircraft. What about the board member? Alex asked, studying a financial chart that showed the staggering scope of the money laundering operation. Most are in custody, Sandra replied. Thomas Bedford tried to run but didn't get far. Turns out your brother kept detailed records of everyone's involvement. Insurance against betrayal. The only one we haven't found is James Chen. Lisa's replacement, Alex remembered. The fake security chief. She was a Phoenix Global operative, Eddie confirmed. He joined the FBI's cybercrime division as a consultant, his expertise crucial in unraveling the technical aspects of the conspiracy. Real name, Mei Wong. Interpol has a file on her going back 10 years. Alex's phone buzzed with another update from the crisis management team. In the days since the evidence went public, VelocityMoto's stock had plummeted. Dealerships across the country were swamped with concerned customers demanding to know if their bikes were compromised. Class action lawsuits were already being filed. We've identified most of the modified vehicles, Eddie continued, pulling up a database. About 60% have been located and secured. My team is developing a system to detect the remote control modifications during routine maintenance, but some bikes are still out there. And Phoenix Global's real masters are still out there too, Mike added grimly. Your brother was just their local business partner. Someone higher up saw the potential in turning everyday vehicles into weapons. A knock at the door interrupted them. Lisa Chen entered, still moving carefully from her ordeal, but looking more like her old self. Mr. Morrison, the interim board is ready for you. Alex nodded. He'd spent the past days cooperating with federal investigators, but he couldn't put this off any longer. VelocityMoto needed direction, and despite everything, he was still CEO. The board meeting was being held in a hotel conference room. The tower was still a crime scene. As Alex entered, he saw mostly new faces. The old board had been swept away by the scandal, replaced by a mix of senior executives and independent directors. The damage assessment is complete. Caroline Wu, the new board chair, began without preamble. 43 deaths from compromised bikes. Over 200 injuries. Lawsuits that could total billions. Our insurance is denying coverage, citing criminal activity, and our reputation. She gestured to screens showing news coverage and social media reactions. The brand is toxic. Then we rebuild it, Alex replied firmly. Not just the brand. Everything, every process, every system, every relationship with our customers. He laid out his plan. Complete transparency about the compromised bikes, full cooperation with law enforcement, a massive recall program to check and repair every vehicle sold in the past 5 years, new safety protocols developed with independent oversight, and most importantly, a victims' compensation fund established immediately. The cost would be astronomical, one director protested. The company might not survive. If we don't do this, we don't deserve to survive, Alex countered. VelocityMoto was founded on my father's belief that everyone deserves the freedom and joy of the open road. Victor corrupted that dream, turned our products into weapons. We're going to make it right. His phone buzzed again. A message from Sandra. "Victor talking. Says there's a failsafe we missed. Stand by." Alex felt his stomach tighten, but he continued addressing the board. "We start with the truth. Complete disclosure to every customer, every dealer, every partner. Then we..." Another message. "Fail-safe found. Hidden code in dealer inventory system would have triggered remaining compromised bikes during next service update. Eddie contained it." Alex allowed himself a small breath of relief. They'd prevented one last attack, but he knew there would be others. Victor's partners wouldn't give up their plan easily. "The company can't afford this recovery plan," Caroline stated bluntly. "No," Alex agreed, "but I can." He slid a document across the table. "I'm liquidating my personal assets, my shares, properties, everything. It won't cover all the costs, but it's a start." The room fell silent. Alex continued. "My father built this company on trust. Victor destroyed that trust. Now we rebuild it, whatever it takes." Later, standing in the hotel bar with Sandra and Mike, Alex watched the evening news coverage of Victor's arraignment. "You didn't have to sacrifice everything," Sandra observed. "The legal team could have protected your assets." "Yes, I did," Alex replied. "Leadership isn't just about making decisions. It's about taking responsibility. Besides," he managed a small smile, "I've still got one thing left." He led them to the hotel parking garage, where 4 motorcycles waited, the same high-tech bikes from their escape. "FBI surplus," Sandra grinned. "Couldn't let them go to waste." "Perfect timing," Mike added. "We've got reports of suspicious shipments moving through Mexico. Might be Phoenix Global setting up new operations. Could use some experienced riders to help check it out." Alex smiled for real this time. VelocityMoto's recovery would take years, but that was tomorrow's problem. Right now, somewhere out there, Victor's real bosses were planning their next move. "When do we leave?" Above them, the city lights flickered on as dusk approached. Somewhere, in those streets, customers were still riding VelocityMoto bikes. Some perhaps still compromised, others simply carrying riders who'd lost faith in the brand. Trust, once broken, was hard to rebuild. But that's exactly what Alex intended to do. One customer, one bike, 1 mile at a time. The road ahead was long, but at least he knew which direction to ride. 6 months later, Alex stood in the rebuilt showroom of VelocityMoto's flagship store. The space had been transformed, gone were the high-pressure sales pods and flashy displays, replaced by transparent glass-walled service bays where customers could watch their bikes being worked on. Digital screens showed real-time diagnostic data and safety certification updates for every vehicle on the floor. Customer confidence up 47% since implementing the transparency protocols, Lisa reported, now fully recovered and heading their new customer safety division. She gestured to a group of visitors touring the service area. "That's the 3rd consumer watchdog group this week. They're calling our new safety verification system the industry standard." Alex watched as Eddie, now their chief of security technology, demonstrated the anti-tampering systems they'd developed. Every bike now came with blockchain-verified service records and component tracking. No part could be replaced or modified without creating a permanent, unalterable record. "Your father would be proud," a familiar voice said. Alex turned to find Mike, still preferring that name to Agent Torres, examining one of the new models. "You didn't just rebuild the company. You changed the whole industry." It was true. The VelocityMoto scandal had forced every major manufacturer to confront their own security vulnerabilities. Alex's decision to open source their new safety protocols had initially shocked the board, but it had also restored public trust in ways no marketing campaign could match. "How's the Phoenix Global investigation?" Alex asked quietly. "Making progress. That tip about Mexico panned out. We found 3 more facilities trying to replicate Victor's control systems, but they're getting sloppy, desperate." Mike smiled grimly. Your brother's not giving them much help from Supermax. Alex's phone buzzed with a news alert. VelocityMoto stock reaches pre-crisis levels as safety innovation drives recovery. The financial comeback had been faster than anyone expected, helped by Alex's personal investment in the Victims Fund. But more importantly, not a single safety incident had been reported since the new protocols were implemented. "Mr. Morrison?" A young woman approached, holding a tablet. "I'm Amy Chen from the National Transportation Safety Board. We're here about implementing your safety standards across all vehicle classes." "Perfect timing," Alex replied. "Let me show you our latest development." He led her to a special display where Sandra, officially their federal compliance liaison, was demonstrating a new scanner. "Every dealership, repair shop and inspection station in the country will have one," Sandra explained. "It can detect unauthorized modifications and control systems in any vehicle, not just motorcycles. We're already getting interest from airports and shipping companies." Amy studied the device. "This could have prevented—" "That's the idea," Alex finished quietly. "No one else dies because we didn't look closely enough." The scanner was just the beginning. Alex's phone contained preliminary designs for a complete overhaul of vehicle security infrastructure. The board had initially balked at investing in technology they'd be giving away to competitors, but Alex had been firm. Some things were more important than profit margins. A commotion near the entrance drew their attention. Two riders had arrived on vintage motorcycles, their leather jackets bearing familiar faces. Mike from the original showroom confrontation, and his companion who'd revealed the brake failure that injured her daughter. "Welcome back," Alex greeted them warmly. "How's Sarah's recovery going?" "Back on a bike last week," the woman beamed. "One of your new models with all the safety features. She's actually here to apply for your rider education program." The program had been Alex's personal project, free advanced rider training. For every customer, with emphasis on safety and mechanical awareness. It was expensive to run, but the reduction in accidents had already offset the costs. "Speaking of education," Mike added, "my warehouse contact, Eddie, just graduated from your technician certification course. Says it's better than his NSA. Training." Alex smiled, remembering the frightened maintenance worker who'd helped expose the conspiracy. Eddie had been their first graduate, but now thousands of mechanics nationwide were learning to spot and prevent vehicle tampering. His phone buzzed again, a message from Caroline Wu. "Board meeting in 10, new expansion proposal." The company wasn't just recovering, it was growing in unexpected ways. Their safety technology division now generated more revenue than bike sales. The transparent service model had attracted a whole new customer base, and their rider community programs were rebuilding the trust that Victor had shattered. "One more thing," Mike said as Alex prepared to leave. "Intelligence suggests Phoenix Global's masters are planning something. They've been buying up small electronics manufacturers, focusing on vehicle control systems." "Let them try," Alex replied confidently. "The industry's different now. Every vehicle that leaves this showroom is a fortress against exactly what they're planning." He looked around at the transformed space, at customers chatting with mechanics, riders sharing stories, families exploring their first bikes together. This was what their father had envisioned, not just selling motorcycles, but building a community based on trust and shared passion. Sarah, the crash survivor, rolled up on her new bike, her mother beaming proudly. A year ago, they'd been victims of corporate greed. Now they were part of the solution, with Sarah planning to teach other riders about safety awareness. "Time for that board meeting," Lisa reminded him. Alex nodded, taking one last look at the showroom. The crisis had nearly destroyed them, but it had also forced them to rebuild something better. Victor had tried to turn their vehicles into weapons. Instead, they'd turned them into symbols of transformation and trust. Every morning, Alex still rode to work on one of Sandra's modified bikes, a reminder of darker days. But now, watching customers ride out on bikes that were genuinely safe and certified, he knew they'd found the right path. The road ahead still held challenges. Phoenix Global's shadow loomed somewhere in the future. But VelocityMoto wasn't just a company anymore. It was a movement, a standard, a promise kept. And that was worth more than all the profits Victor had chased. 1 year, to the day after his undercover visit, Alex Morrison once again adjusted his leather jacket in front of a VelocityMoto dealership. This time, though, there was no need for disguise. The worn riding gear was his daily choice now, the connection to customers more valuable than any executive suit. "Ready for the anniversary announcement?" Lisa asked, falling into step beside him. The media had gathered inside, eager to hear about VelocityMoto's remarkable turnaround story. "Almost. There's something I need to check first." Alex headed for the service department, where a familiar face was waiting. Mike, the customer whose angry confrontation had helped expose everything, was now their head of quality assurance. He was examining a sophisticated-looking motorcycle with Eddie, their eyes focused on an unusual modification. "You need to see this," Mike said without preamble. "It came in for routine service this morning. Owner complained about unusual handling." Eddie pointed to a nearly invisible panel in the bike's electronic control unit. "It's next-gen tech, way beyond what Victor was using. Someone's still trying to create remote-controlled vehicles, but they're being smarter about it. This would have slipped right past our normal scanners." Alex felt a chill. How many could be out there? "That's the interesting part," Eddie replied, pulling up diagnostic data. "The components have a manufacturing date from last week. This isn't leftover tech from Victor's operation. Someone's actively producing these now." Lisa was already on her phone, coordinating with their security team. "I'll have every dealership checking for similar modifications, but if they're this sophisticated, we need to go undercover again," Alex concluded. "But this time, we do it right." He turned to Sandra, who had just arrived. "How quickly can we get federal backing for a full investigation?" "Already in motion," she replied. "Remember those electronics manufacturers Phoenix Global was targeting? They just merged into a new corporation, Nexus Dynamics. Their first product, advanced vehicle control systems for enhanced safety." The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Their success in exposing Victor's conspiracy had forced their enemies to adapt, to operate in plain sight under the guise of legitimate business. "They're using our own playbook against us," Mike observed, "marketing remote control technology as a safety feature." Alex's phone buzzed, a message from an encrypted number he hadn't seen in months. "Miss me, little brother? You didn't think I was the endpoint, did you? Some dreams are too big for one company or one family." "Victor's reaching out from prison," Alex announced grimly, "which means he was just the middleman all along," Sandra finished. "Phoenix Global used him to test the concept. Now they're going legitimate with it." Through the showroom windows, Alex could see the gathered media setting up cameras. They were expecting a victory speech, a celebration of VelocityMoto's redemption. Instead, he was staring at proof that the real battle was just beginning. "Mr. Morrison?" A young mechanic approached nervously. "There's something else. We found similar modifications in 3 more bikes this morning. All recent sales, all high-end models. But here's the weird part. The owners all work for the same company." "Let me guess," Sandra said. "Nexus Dynamics?" The mechanic nodded. "They're offering employees special financing on luxury vehicles, complete with free safety upgrades." Alex looked around the showroom, at the transparent service bays, the safety certification displays, the community of trust they'd rebuilt from the ashes of Victor's betrayal. They'd won the first round by exposing the conspiracy, but their enemies had learned, adapted, and come back stronger. "Cancel the press conference," he decided. Lisa, get me everything you can on Nexus Dynamics. Eddie, start developing new detection systems. Mike, we need to reach out to other manufacturers. They need to know what's coming. And you? Sandra asked, though she already knew the answer. Alex smiled, reaching for his helmet. Time to go shopping for a new bike. I hear Nexus Dynamics has some interesting financing options. Not alone this time, Mike insisted. We do this as a team. Looking at the faces around him, Lisa's determination, Eddie's technical brilliance, Mike's unwavering integrity, Sandra's strategic mind, Alex felt a surge of confidence. Victor had tried to corrupt their father's dream alone, but its redemption had come through partnership, through trust, through community. One more thing, Sandra added. That encrypted message from Victor, we traced it. It didn't come from prison. Alex's phone buzzed again. The future is coming, little brother. The only question is, which side of history will you be on? Outside, reporters were starting to get restless. They wanted to hear about VelocityMoto's past, about overcoming scandal and rebuilding trust. Instead, Alex would have to tell them about the road ahead, about the next chapter in an ongoing fight for the soul of an industry. Well, he said, pocketing his phone, guess it's time to go undercover shopping. Anyone else want to help me finance a new bike? The small group shared knowing smiles. 1 year ago, Alex had walked into his own dealership alone, looking for answers. Now he had something better, a team, a purpose, and a chance to protect. Not just his company's legacy, but the future of vehicle safety itself. Victor had tried to turn their father's dream into a nightmare. Nexus Dynamics wanted to take that nightmare global. But this time, they weren't facing a lone CEO in disguise. This time, they were ready. Alex started his bike, the engine's rumble echoing through the showroom. Behind him, 4 more bikes roared to life, a team prepared to take on whatever challenges lay ahead. The road called, and somewhere out there, answers waited. It was time to ride. The Nexus Dynamics corporate campus sprawled across 50 acres of prime Silicon Valley real estate, its gleaming buildings designed to project innovation and transparency. Alex adjusted his tie, not the power suit of a CEO this time, but the careful business casual of a mid-level tech executive. Remember, you're Alexander Mills, former software architect from Tesla's autonomous vehicle division. Sandra's voice came through his nearly invisible earpiece. Your resume's been backstopped with enough real credentials to withstand scrutiny, and enough interesting gaps to make me attractive to recruiters looking for someone willing to bend rules, Alex added, approaching the security desk. The guard scanned his visitor badge, provided by a contact in FBI cybercrime who'd been tracking Nexus's hiring patterns. Mr. Mills, right this way. A sleek woman in her 30s appeared, tablet in hand. I'm Jennifer Hayes, head of talent acquisition. We're very excited about your background in vehicle automation. As they walked through the facility, Alex noted the security cameras, far more sophisticated than standard corporate surveillance. Eddie's voice crackled in his ear. Those are military-grade tracking systems, same ones Victor tried to install at VelocityMoto before you blocked the purchase. The familiar twinge of betrayal hit him. How many of Victor's modernization proposals had actually been laying groundwork for Phoenix Global's operation? Jennifer led him to a conference room where 3 other executives waited. Alex recognized one from Sandra's briefing, Dr. Marcus Chen, formerly of DARPA's Autonomous Weapons Division. His presence confirmed their suspicions about Nexus's true purpose. Mr. Mills, Dr. Chen began without preamble. Your work on predictive driver behavior algorithms is impressive, but we're particularly interested in your unauthorized research into override protocols. Alex played his role perfectly, feigning discomfort. That project was terminated for ethical concerns. Short-sighted concerns, another executive. You cut in. Imagine the applications. A parent remotely stopping a teenager's car before an accident, police halting stolen vehicles without dangerous pursuits, emergency services taking control during medical crises. All noble goals, Alex agreed carefully, but the potential for abuse is precisely why such technology needs responsible development, Dr. Chen smiled. Unlike certain recent scandals in the industry, we're pursuing this legally, transparently. A dig at VelocityMoto. Alex forced down his anger, maintaining his cover. You've certainly got impressive facilities, but these systems would need extensive, real-world testing. Already in progress. Jennifer pulled up a map on the wall screen. Dozens of dots moved along highways across the country. Our employee vehicle program provides valuable data, all perfectly disclosed in the financing agreements, of course. Alex's micro-camera captured everything as he leaned forward with apparent interest. Through his earpiece, Eddie whispered, "Those aren't just cars. I'm seeing motorcycles, trucks. They're building a network of controlled vehicles even bigger than Victor's plan." "Of course," Dr. Chen continued, "we'll need to discuss our confidentiality requirements. We've had some security concerns recently, a few of our test vehicles being examined by unauthorized mechanics." The trap was subtle but clear. They were watching his reaction, testing whether he'd connect this to VelocityMoto's recent discoveries. Industrial espionage is always a concern in autonomous vehicle development, Alex replied smoothly. My previous employer was quite paranoid about it. Indeed. Dr. Chen's smile didn't reach his eyes. Speaking of previous employers, do you know Alex Morrison? The question was a landmine. Deny it too strongly and he'd seem suspicious. Admit connection and his cover might be blown. The VelocityMoto CEO? Only by reputation. His company's recent focus on cybersecurity has created interesting challenges for the whole industry. Challenges, Dr. Chen repeated softly. Yes, that's one word for it. His rather dramatic exposure of certain technologies has forced a more sophisticated approach to vehicle integration. Through his earpiece, Sandra whispered urgently, "Alex, we've got movement. Armed security teams entering the building." "Well," Alex stood casually straightening papers, "I appreciate your time. I'll need to review your offer package carefully." "Of course." "Oh, I insist you stay." Dr. Chen's tone hardened. "We have so much more to discuss. Mr. Morrison." The conference room door opened. Two men in tactical gear entered, weapons held low but ready. Behind them came a familiar face, one that sent ice through Alex's veins. "Hello, Alex," said Lisa Chen. The real Lisa Chen, not the imposter who'd taken her place. "I believe you've been worried about me." She looked healthy, but hard, nothing like the frightened captive they'd seen in Victor's video feed. This Lisa moved with confident authority, her eyes cold and calculating. "You weren't a prisoner," Alex realized. "You were part of it all along." Someone had to coordinate between Victor's operation and Phoenix Global. She shrugged, playing the concerned executive, then the helpless victim. It kept you focused on your brother instead of looking deeper. Alex's mind raced. If Lisa was compromised, how much of their current security was exposed? How many of their new safety protocols had she helped design? "Don't worry about your precious VelocityMoto," she added, reading his expression. "We're far beyond simple motorcycle controls now. Would you like to see what real vehicle integration looks like?" The wall screen came alive with footage from across the country. Thousands of vehicles moved in perfect synchronization, their drivers unaware they were part of something much bigger. "The future of transportation," Dr. Chen declared. "Total control in the name of safety, and you're just in time to witness the first full-scale demonstration." Through his earpiece, now ominously silent, Alex had one thought. The trap hadn't been sprung. It had been waiting all along. "The demonstration begins in 30 minutes, Dr. Chen announced, checking his watch. Major intersections in 12 cities. A carefully choreographed display of our capability to influence traffic patterns." Alex studied the wall screen, mind racing. The dots representing controlled vehicles were concentrating around key infrastructure, bridges, tunnels, financial districts. This wasn't just a demonstration, it was a threat. "You're going to cause synchronized accidents," he realized. "Create chaos to prove you can." "Controlled chaos," Lisa corrected, her familiar voice now carrying an edge he'd never noticed before. "Just enough to make transportation authorities worldwide realize they need our safety systems. After all, who wouldn't want technology that could have prevented such tragic incidents?" Through his dead earpiece, Alex could only hope Sandra and the others had heard enough before communications were cut. But he hadn't survived Victor's conspiracy by being helpless. Time to find out how much his captors really knew. Victor's operation was crude compared to this, he said carefully. "Remote controls spliced into existing systems. But you've built it into the vehicles from the ground up, haven't you?" "Your brother was a useful test case," Dr. Chen nodded. "His failure proved we needed a more elegant approach. Modern vehicles are already filled with driver assistance features, collision avoidance, automated emergency responses. We simply unified those systems under centralized control and buried it in the financing contracts," Alex added. "The employee purchase program, people literally signing away control of their vehicles." "Page 47, subsection C," Jennifer smiled. "Authorization for continuous safety monitoring and autonomous intervention. Perfectly legal." Alex moved casually toward the window, appearing to study the campus below. His hand brushed his watch, a gift from Eddie, packed with more than just timekeeping functions. "How many vehicles?" he asked, carefully pressing the watch's crown. "Currently, about 20,000 across North America," Lisa replied. "But after today's demonstration, every major manufacturer will be rushing to implement our safety protocols. Imagine it, Alex. Every new vehicle built with our systems. Total control over transportation infrastructure. The ultimate kill. Switch," he understood. "Not just individual vehicles, but entire cities." "A kill switch implies stopping things," Dr. Chen corrected. "We prefer to think of it as choreography. Watch." The screen shifted to live traffic cameras. At his gesture, dozens of vehicles smoothly changed lanes in perfect synchronization, their drivers completely unaware they weren't in control. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Lisa approached, her heels clicking on the polished floor. "So much more elegant than Victor's crude hacks. He thought too small. Just motorcycles, just one company. We're reshaping the entire transportation grid." Alex's watch vibrated subtly. Confirmation that its emergency beacon had activated. Now he just had to keep them talking until help arrived. If it arrived. "Why show me this?" he asked. "Why not just eliminate me like Victor tried to do?" "Because you proved something valuable," Dr. Chen replied. "Your response to Victor's operation showed us the wrong way to implement this technology. Fighting public exposure is futile. Better to control the narrative, present it as a safety feature, let people welcome the very chains we're placing on them." "And you want my help selling it," Alex concluded. "The reformed CEO endorsing next generation safety protocols." "Oh, your reputation for integrity is actually quite useful," Jennifer added. "If Alex Morrison supports our technology after everything he exposed." A commotion outside interrupted her. Guards rushed past the conference room, weapons ready. "Perimeter breach," one reported. "Multiple vehicles approaching from the service road." Dr. Chen frowned at his tablet. Security drones are offline. Internal cameras dropping out. What? Eddie says hello, Alex smiled. The watch had done more than just signal his location. You really should have checked me for more than just weapons. Lisa's eyes widened in recognition. The watch. It's been broadcasting everything. And mapping your network architecture, Alex confirmed. You're not the only ones who've improved your technology since Victor. The building's lights flickered. On the wall screen, the pattern of controlled vehicles began to break apart as Eddie's virus spread through Nexus's command systems. "Stop him!" Dr. Chen shouted. "The demonstration is being demonstrated on," Alex said as the first explosion rocked the campus. "Remember those vehicles you so carefully positioned around critical infrastructure? My team's been busy finding their owners. Amazing how quickly people respond when you show them the fine print they missed." Through the window, he could see motorcycles roaring up the service road, led by a familiar Harley-Davidson. Mike had brought reinforcements. "Security protocols," Lisa snapped into her phone. "Initiate emergency." "Yeah, about those protocols," Alex interrupted. "You really shouldn't have let the real Lisa Chen help design our new safety systems. She left herself a back door, one that Eddie's been using to trace your entire network." The screen dissolved into chaos as vehicle after vehicle dropped off Nexus's control grid. In 12 cities, their carefully choreographed accidents were unraveling. "Impressive," Dr. Chen admitted as armed FBI agents breached the conference room. "But you've only delayed the inevitable. The technology exists. Someone will implement it." "You're right," Alex agreed as Sandra led the arrest team. "The technology does exist. That's why we're going to show the world exactly what you plan to do with it. No more hiding behind legal documents and safety protocols." As they led his captors away, Alex's phone buzzed. A message from Eddie. "Found something interesting in their servers. Looks like Nexus Dynamics isn't the top of the pyramid. These orders came from somewhere else." Alex watched the chaos unfold on the wall screen. They'd stopped the demonstration, exposed the technology, saved countless lives. But Dr. Chen's words echoed in his mind. The technology existed, and somewhere out there, someone had given Nexus Dynamics their orders. "One layer at a time," he muttered, following Sandra from the conference room. They'd won this round, but the real fight was just beginning. Outside, Mike killed his Harley's engine. "We traced their vehicle network. You're not going to believe how deep this goes." Alex mounted behind him, his watch still collecting data from Nexus's failing systems. "Try me. After today, I'll believe anything." The road ahead was darker than ever, but at least they knew what they were fighting, and this time they had the right weapons for the job. The FBI's mobile command center hummed with activity as analysts processed data from Nexus Dynamics servers. Alex stood before a holographic display, showing a web of connections that stretched far beyond what they'd imagined. "It's not just vehicles," Eddie explained, manipulating the digital model. Their control systems were being integrated into everything. Traffic lights, railway switches, automated shipping ports. They were building a kill switch for the entire transportation infrastructure. "But look at the money trail," Mike added, highlighting financial streams that flowed through the network. Nexus was just a subsidiary. The real funding came through these shell companies. He gestured, and dozens of corporate entities lit up across the globe. "Wait." Alex leaned closer, recognizing a familiar name. "Morton International. They tried to acquire VelocityMoto 6 months before Victor started his operation." Sandra pulled up the relevant files. Morton International, officially a venture capital firm specializing in transportation technology. But their corporate structure is interesting. The same board members keep appearing in different companies, always connected to vehicle automation or infrastructure control. Cross-reference with Phoenix Global's known operations, Alex suggested. The hologram shifted, revealing new patterns. There, Eddie pointed. Every time Phoenix Global set up a new operation, Morrison International would acquire a local technology firm in the same region. They weren't just funding the technology, they were building a global implementation network. Alex's phone buzzed, a message from an encrypted number. Impressive work with Nexus. But did you really think Victor came up with Project Avalanche on his own? Some avalanches can't be stopped once they start. They're not even trying to hide anymore, Mike observed, reading over Alex's shoulder. They want us to know how big this is. Because they think they're untouchable, Alex replied. Corporate layers, political connections, legal frameworks, all designed to make their takeover appear legitimate. Speaking of legitimate, Sandra interrupted. You need to see this. She pulled up footage from Transportation Committee hearings across multiple countries. New safety regulations being proposed worldwide. Mandatory integration of automated emergency control systems in all new vehicles. They're doing exactly what Chen said, Alex realized. Using Nexus's failure to push for legitimate control. When people are scared of technology, they'll accept any solution that promises safety. Eddie's fingers flew across his keyboard. It gets worse. Those modified vehicles we found at VelocityMoto, the technology wasn't just about remote control. They were gathering data, traffic patterns, infrastructure weaknesses, driver behaviors, everything needed to model how to paralyze a city's transportation grid. And now they're going to do it legally, Mike added grimly. Force every manufacturer to install their systems under government mandate. No more need for secret modifications. Alex studied the complex web of connections floating before them. Something was bothering him about the pattern. Show me the timeline again. When did Morrison International first appear? The data shifted, revealing a surprising answer. The company had been founded 30 years ago by Jonathan Morrison, Alex's father. That's impossible, Alex breathed. Dad built VelocityMoto from nothing. He was all about rider freedom, personal responsibility. Was he? Sandra asked quietly. She pulled up an old photograph. Jonathan Morrison meeting with military officials, the word classified stamped across the top. Your father's original patents. They weren't just about motorcycles. He was developing vehicle control systems for the Department of Defense. Project Guardian, Mike read from the declassified documents, a system to remotely disable enemy vehicles during combat operations, but it was deemed too dangerous, the potential for civilian applications too tempting. So he buried it? Alex understood, created VelocityMoto to promote the opposite message, freedom of the open road, and Morrison International. Was his failsafe, Eddie finished. A way to monitor and control the technology he couldn't destroy, but someone else found his research. Alex's phone buzzed again. Your father tried to protect the world from his creation. How does it feel to know you failed where he succeeded? The command center's main screen suddenly came to life, showing traffic cameras across multiple cities. In perfect synchronization, vehicles began changing lanes, creating patterns visible only from above. That's impossible, Eddie protested, fingers racing across his keyboard. We shut down Nexus's control system. No, Alex said quietly. We shut down one control system, but if Morrison International has been operating for 30 years, they've had time to build redundancies, Sandra realized. Multiple networks, different technologies. Nexus was just their latest iteration. The pattern of moving vehicles resolved into words visible from satellite view. Phase 2 begins. Alex, Mike called urgently. VelocityMoto's safety system, the one we built after Victor. Could they have compromised it? The real Lisa Chen helped design it, Alex remembered with growing horror. And if she was working with them all along, Then every vehicle we fixed might actually be part of their network, Eddie confirmed. We didn't just shut down their system, we helped them upgrade it. The implications were staggering. They hadn't exposed the conspiracy, they'd played right into its hands, and somewhere out there, Alex's father's failsafe had become exactly what he'd feared most. Alex's phone lit up with one final message. "Time to decide, son. Join us in controlling the avalanche, or be buried by it. Dad made his choice 30 years ago, now it's your turn." The holographic display continued spinning, each connection revealing new layers of a conspiracy 3 decades in the making. They'd thought Victor was the mastermind, then Nexus Dynamics. But the real puppet masters had been there all along, waiting patiently for technology to catch up with Jonathan Morrison's original vision. "Well," Mike asked quietly, "what's the play?" Alex stared at the satellite footage of vehicles moving in perfect, terrifying synchronization. "We find my father's failsafe, the real one. Because if he was willing to build all this to contain his creation, then he must have built a way to stop it," Sandra finished. "Eddie, download everything. Mike, get our bikes ready. Sandra." "Already making calls," she nodded. "But Alex, if your father really was involved, then everything we know about VelocityMoto, about my family, about the whole industry, it's all been built on a lie." Outside, thunder rumbled across the darkening sky. Somewhere in 30 years of secrets, answers waited. The question was, would they find them before Phase 2 was complete? The Morrison family estate stood dark against the twilight sky, untouched since Jonathan Morrison's death 3 years ago. Alex killed his bike's engine at the end of the long driveway, memories flooding back. Sunday rides with his father, Victor, racing them both on the private track, endless hours in the massive garage where Jonathan had built his first prototype motorcycles. "Your father's private study is still sealed," Sandra reported, dismounting her own bike. "Executive directive, only to be opened in case of corporate emergency." "I'd say this qualifies," Mike commented, checking his tactical gear. "After the Nexus Dynamics incident, none of them were taking chances." Alex approached the house's security panel, remembering countless childhood warnings never to enter certain areas. He'd always assumed it was normal CEO paranoia about corporate secrets. Now he wondered what his father had really been protecting. "The house has its own power grid," he explained, entering a complex code, "and a security system that's completely isolated from outside networks." "Smart," Eddie nodded, studying the setup on his tablet. "No remote access possible. But look at the power consumption. This place is running serious computing hardware." The front door opened silently. Motion sensors triggered soft lighting in the massive foyer, illuminating familiar family photos. Alex paused at one showing 3 generations of Morrisons at VelocityMoto's first dealership opening. "Dad preached freedom of the road," he said quietly. "Built an entire company culture around rider independence. Was it all just a cover story?" "Maybe not," Sandra suggested. "The classified files showed he shut down Project Guardian because he feared its implications. Everything he built afterward, it could have been attempting to balance the scales. The study door required both biometric scanning and physical keys." Alex's hand shook slightly as he completed the security sequence. The heavy door swung open to reveal. "My God," Eddie breathed. The room was a command center that would put most intelligence agencies to shame. Powerful computers hummed along the walls. Multiple screens displayed real-time data from transportation networks worldwide. At the center, a holographic projector showed a slowly rotating globe marked with thousands of pulsing lights. "Vehicle control systems," Eddie explained, examining. "The nearest terminal. Your father was tracking them all. Every attempt to implement the technology, every company researching similar patents. He was containing it, Alex realized, using Morrison International to monitor and control any development that came close to his original design. Until Victor found out, Mike added, must have discovered some of this, realized the potential. Alex moved to his father's desk, untouched since his death. A framed photo caught his eye, Jonathan Morrison with a much younger Victor and Alex teaching them motorcycle maintenance. The lesson he always repeated, understanding how things work means knowing how to fix them when they break. The desk's surface was a single massive touchscreen. Alex's fingerprint brought it to life, revealing a message waiting 3 years. To be found. Alex, if you're seeing this, then what I feared has happened. The technology couldn't be contained forever. Victor never understood. It's not about control, it's about choice. Everything I built, everything I hid, it was all to protect that choice. The failsafe isn't a weapon or a kill switch, it's something far more powerful. Follow the road, son. You'll understand when you reach the end. Dad. Classic Morrison cryptic, Sandra muttered. What road? But Alex was already moving to a specific photo on the wall, an aerial shot of the family's private motorcycle test track. In the image, the track's curves formed a distinct pattern. It's not just a track, he said, pulling the photo down, to reveal a safe. It's a key. The safe contained a single item, an ancient motorcycle key on a leather fob. Alex recognized it immediately. His father's first bike, the one that started everything. The original prototype, he explained. Dad kept it in the garage, said it was too valuable to ever ride again. The garage with better security than most bank vaults, Eddie remembered from his system scan. The massive garage was Jonathan Morrison's temple to motorcycle history. Dozens of carefully preserved bikes traced VelocityMoto's evolution. But in the center, under a dust cover that hadn't been disturbed in decades, waited the one that started it all. Alex's hands trembled as he removed the cover. The prototype was both familiar and strange, recognizable as a Morrison design, but with elements he'd never seen in production models. The key fit perfectly. Alex, Eddie called urgently from his tablet. The power reading's in here. There's something else running besides the security systems. The engine caught on the first try, settling into a familiar rumble. But the digital display that flickered to life was anything but vintage. Lines of code scrolled past, culminating in a single message. Prototype 1 online. Guardian protocol access granted. Begin primary directive. This is it, Eddie breathed, studying the readouts. The original system hidden in plain sight. Your father built the failsafe into his first bike. But what does it do? Mike asked. Before Alex could respond, his phone buzzed with an alert from VelocityMoto's security team. Massive system breaches detected across their network. On Eddie's tablet, the map of controlled vehicles began pulsing with new activity. Phase 2 is starting, Sandra reported grimly. They're not just controlling traffic anymore, they're locking down entire transportation grids. Alex stared at his father's motorcycle, the beginning and perhaps the end of everything VelocityMoto had become. The choice Jonathan Morrison had mentioned. Eddie, connect to the bike system. Let's see what this prototype can really do. Alex, Sandra cautioned, if this is the original Project Guardian tech, then it's exactly what we need. Alex threw his leg over the familiar seat. Dad said it's about choice. Time to give people back control of their own vehicles. The prototype's engine note changed, harmonics shifting as ancient processors awakened. On the digital display, a new message appeared. Choose your road. The prototype motorcycles. Display flickered with cascading data as Eddie connected his diagnostic equipment. Alex could feel the machine humming beneath him, different from any bike he'd ever ridden. This wasn't just transportation. It was his father's original vision, whatever that might mean. The system architecture is incredible, Eddie marveled. Studying the readouts, quantum processing cores, adaptive networking. This is decades ahead of anything we have now. Your father didn't just predict modern vehicle control technology, he surpassed it. But why hide it in his first bike? Mike wondered, checking the garage's perimeter. Why not destroy it completely if it was so dangerous? Because some genies can't be put back in the bottle, Sandra answered, reviewing decades-old project files on her tablet. Your father's notes suggest he knew the technology would eventually be rediscovered. This wasn't about preventing it. It was about preparing for it. Alex's phone erupted with alerts. Phase 2 was accelerating. Across the country, transportation systems were going dark. Traffic lights frozen, railway switches locked, automated ports shut down. The carefully orchestrated chaos they'd seen at Nexus Dynamics was just a preview. They're isolating major cities, Eddie reported grimly, using controlled vehicles to block key intersections, create strategic gridlock. Emergency services can't get through. Classic siege tactics, Mike added. Cut off movement, create panic, wait for people to demand solutions, then sweep in with their safety systems as the answer, Alex finished. Dad's worst fear, using the technology to force people to accept it. The prototype's display shifted, showing a map overlay of affected areas, but there was something different about this visualization. Beneath the surface chaos, patterns emerged. It's not just showing the controlled vehicles, Eddie realized. It's mapping the control signals themselves. Your father's bike can see the entire network. Alex studied the complex web of digital commands flowing across the country. At key nodes, familiar names appeared. Morrison international subsidiaries, each managing a different segment of the grid. There, Sandra pointed, primary control hub, in their Atlanta office, if we can reach it. We won't make it in time, Mike cut her off. Look at the roadblocks they're establishing. Every route is being systematically cut off. But Alex was focused on something else, a subtle option pulsing in the prototype's interface. Broadcast override available. Eddie, what happens if we activate that? The technician's fingers flew across his tablet. Based on these specs, the bike could transmit a counter signal, not just to block their control, but to give control back to individual vehicles. Your father built a universal override. That's impossible, Sandra protested. Modern vehicle systems use different protocols, encrypted channels. Not as different as we think, Alex said slowly, remembering his father's lectures about engineering fundamentals. Dad always said every control system builds on what came before. He designed the original. He'd know their common foundations. Another alert, hospitals reporting critical delays as ambulances were trapped in artificially created traffic snarls. Time was running out. The broadcast would have to be powerful enough to reach across the country, Eddie cautioned. This bike's transmitter couldn't possibly. Unless it doesn't have to reach everywhere at once, Alex interrupted. Look at their network structure. It's hierarchical. If we can insert our signal at a high enough level, it would propagate through their own system, Eddie finished excitedly. Use their network against them, just like a virus. Or a vaccine, Alex smiled grimly. Dad didn't build a kill switch, he built an antidote. His phone buzzed. Another encrypted message. Impressive detective work finding Jonathan's prototype. But did you really think we wouldn't plan for his failsafe? Phase 2 isn't just about control. It's about evolution. The next step your father was too afraid to take. Through the garage's windows, they could see vehicles beginning to move on the estate's private road. Sleek, unmarked SUVs approaching with military precision. Morrison International Security Teams, Mike reported, checking his weapon. Heavy tactical gear. They're here for the bike. How long to activate the override? Alex asked Eddie. 10 minutes to decode the broadcast protocols. Maybe another 5 to T. You have 3, Sandra cut him off, moving to defensive positions with Mike. They're not going to wait politely. Alex's hands flew over the prototype's interface, muscle memory from childhood maintenance sessions, guiding him through unfamiliar systems. The bike seemed to respond to his touch, as if it had been waiting for this moment. Dad said it's about choice, he muttered. The choice to control your own path. The display shifted again, showing a simplified command. Initiate Freedom Protocol. Outside, the SUVs screeched to a halt. Doors burst open as armed teams deployed with practiced efficiency. 1 minute, Eddie called over the sound of boots. On gravel, the garage's reinforced doors wouldn't hold them for long. Alex could hear cutting tools beginning to bite into the metal. 30 seconds! Sandra and Mike took up positions behind vintage motorcycles, weapons ready. The choice Jonathan Morrison had mentioned. Suddenly, Alex understood. His father hadn't hidden the technology out of fear. He'd preserved it to protect something more important. 10 seconds! The garage doors began to glow red from the cutting torches. Alex's finger hovered over the prototype's activation control. Systems ready, Eddie confirmed. The doors crashed inward as Morrison International's teams breached the garage, but they were too late. Alex pressed the control. The prototype's engine note changed, harmonics shifting to a deeper frequency that seemed to resonate through the entire garage. On every vintage motorcycle surrounding them, long dormant displays suddenly flickered to life. No way, Eddie breathed, his tablet lighting up with new data. They're all connected. Every bike your father ever built. Not just built, Alex realized, watching systems activate across his father's collection. Designed. Look at the manufacturing dates. Even the mass production models have the same underlying architecture. The holographic display expanded to show thousands of points of light appearing across the country, each representing a VelocityMoto motorcycle built under Jonathan Morrison's leadership. A sleeping army, Sandra understood. Hidden in plain sight all these years. Movement outside, Mike reported from his position. The security teams are regrouping, calling in reinforcements. Whatever we're doing, we need to do it fast. Alex studied the prototype's interface as it coordinated with the awakened network. Each activated bike was broadcasting the Freedom Protocol, creating a mesh network that could reach the isolated segments Morrison International had protected. Your father was brilliant, Eddie said, analyzing the data flow. He knew they'd eventually develop countermeasures to any single system, so he built his failsafe into every motorcycle VelocityMoto ever produced. Millions of individual nodes. Impossible to shut down all at once. Through the broken garage doors, they could hear helicopters approaching. Morrison International wasn't just sending security teams now. This was a full military-style operation. The Freedom Protocol is spreading through their encrypted networks, Eddie reported excitedly. The distributed processing power of all these bikes working together. It's overwhelming their quantum defenses through sheer volume. But Alex noticed something odd about the pattern of activation. These aren't just random connections. Look at how the bikes are linking up. They're forming specific configurations like a neural network, Sandra finished, showing him classified documents from Project Guardian. Your father's original design wasn't about controlling vehicles. It was about teaching them to resist control. Alex's phone buzzed with another encrypted message. Clever old Jonathan, hiding his countermeasure in every bike. But did you think we wouldn't prepare for this too? Check your market data. Eddie's tablet pinged with urgent alerts. VelocityMoto stock is in freefall. Morrison International just announced evidence that every motorcycle we've ever produced contains unauthorized control systems. They're painting us as the villains. Classic misdirection, Mike growled. turn public opinion against the cure by making it look like the disease. Through the prototype's network connection, Alex could see the effects rippling through the transportation grid. The Freedom Protocol was working, breaking Morton's hold on modern vehicles. But their countermove was devastating. Regulatory agencies worldwide were already calling for VelocityMoto bikes to be taken off the roads. "We're losing the narrative," Sandra warned. "At this rate, they'll have the company shut down within hours. All these bikes deactivated and impounded." "Unless we show everyone the truth," Alex said quietly, studying a new option that had appeared on the prototype's display. "Activate public demonstration mode." "Alex, wait," Eddie cautioned. "We don't know what that does. Your father's systems are incredibly complex. And incredibly ethical," Alex finished. "Everything he built was about giving people choice, so let's give them one." He activated the command. Across the country, every VelocityMoto motorcycle's display lit up with a simple message. "Your bike systems have been protecting you from unauthorized control. Would you like to see how?" "Brilliant," Sandra breathed. "Let the riders themselves choose whether to participate." Through the network, they watched as responses flooded in. Thousands of riders, given the chance to understand what their bikes had been quietly doing all along, chose to see the truth. The prototype's holographic display showed the results, VelocityMoto riders voluntarily demonstrating how their bikes could resist external control attempts, sharing videos of Morrison International's forced traffic manipulations failing against their machines. "The public narrative is shifting," Eddie reported, monitoring social media reactions. "People are starting to understand we're not the ones trying to take away their freedom to ride." But their victory was interrupted by the sound of breaching. Charges being set on the garage's reinforced walls. Morrison International's forces weren't giving up. "Multiple teams," Mike called out. "Professional military contractors. They're setting up for a coordinated assault." Alex's phone lit up with, "One final message. You're forcing our hand. Initiate Protocol Omega. Sane." Through the prototype's network, they watched in horror as Morrison International's systems began targeting specific vehicles, not to control them, but to disable them completely. Critical infrastructure trucks, emergency response vehicles, medical, transport. Anything that couldn't be controlled was being systematically shut down. "They're going to paralyze entire cities," Sandra realized. "Create a crisis so severe that people will accept any solution. Even if that solution means giving up control of their vehicles forever," Alex finished grimly. The prototype's display showed a new alert. "Secondary defense protocol available. Warning. Activation requires direct neural interface." "Neural interface?" Eddie asked incredulously. "Your father built something that connects directly to human consciousness." Alex remembered his father's words about choice, about understanding how things work. The ultimate choice. Not just giving control back to the vehicles, but linking human awareness directly to the machines. The garage. Walls began to crack as the breaching charges did their work. Through the growing gaps, they could see dozens of armed figures preparing for the final assault. "Whatever you're going to do," Mike shouted over the noise, "do it fast." Alex looked at the prototype's neural interface option, then at his father's photo still sitting on the workbench. Jonathan Morrison had spent 30 years preparing for this moment, building a defense that could only be activated by someone willing to literally merge with his creation. The real choice, Alex realized, wasn't about technology at all. It was about trust. Trust in his father's vision, trust in the connection between human and machine, trust in the power of individual choice over centralized control. The prototype hummed beneath him, waiting for his decision. Behind them, the garage. Walls began to fall. "Do it!" Sandra shouted as chunks of reinforced concrete crashed down. "We're out of options." Alex's fingers found the neural interface control just as the first flashbangs detonated. The world exploded into blinding light and deafening sound. But he was already falling into something else, a digital landscape where human consciousness met machine logic. The prototype systems merged with his awareness in a rush of data and sensation. He wasn't just riding the bike anymore. He was connected to every VelocityMoto ever built, feeling their presence like extensions of his own nervous system. Through their sensors, he could see the entire transportation grid, the patterns of control and resistance flowing like synaptic impulses across the country. "Remarkable," his father's voice echoed through the digital space. "I always knew it would be you, Alex. You understood that vehicles aren't just machines, they're expressions of human freedom." "Dad?" Alex's consciousness reached toward the familiar presence. "Just an echo," the voice replied. "A guiding protocol I left behind. The real question is, what do you see?" Through his expanded awareness, Alex could see everything. Morrison International's Protocol Omega wasn't just shutting down vehicles, it was rewriting their fundamental programming, turning the entire transportation infrastructure into a single controlled system. But he could also see the resistance. Millions of VelocityMoto riders choosing to activate their bikes' defenses, creating islands of freedom in the digital storm. In the physical world, he dimly heard gunfire and shouting as Mike and Sandra engaged the assault team. Eddie's voice seemed to come from far away. His neural patterns are integrating with the network. "It's actually working." "Show them," his father's echo urged. "Show them what real connection looks like." Alex reached out through the network, touching the minds of other riders through their bikes' interfaces. Not controlling, inviting. One by one, they accepted the deeper connection, adding their consciousness to the growing neural web. Through their combined awareness, he could feel Morrison International's operators fighting to maintain control of their systems. But they were working through computers, through cold digital protocols. This was different. This was human intuition merged with machine precision, organic creativity enhanced by digital speed. "Multiple targets acquired," a tactical team leader's voice cut through his expanded consciousness. "Prepare to..." Alex flexed his newfound awareness. Every motorcycle in the garage roared to life simultaneously, their headlights blinding. The assault team. Through the neural network, he could feel riders across the country doing the same, creating light shows, sound barriers, coordinated movements that demonstrated their machine's independence. "Sir," Eddie's voice penetrated the digital haze. "The network is evolving. Riders everywhere are linking in, sharing control protocols, teaching their bikes new defenses. It's like a massive distributed AI, but powered by human consciousness." In the neural space, Alex could see the truth of it. Each connected rider brought their own skills, their own understanding of their machine. The network wasn't just resisting control, it was learning, growing, becoming something entirely new. This is what you were building toward, he realized, communicating with his father's echo. Not just a failsafe, but an evolution. Human and machine working together instead of one controlling the other. Through the prototype's enhanced sensors, he watched Morrison International's Protocol Omega attempting to adapt. But their automated systems couldn't match the creative unpredictability of thousands of linked human minds. Where they shut down one route, riders instantly created alternatives. Where they disabled one system, the neural network found innovative workarounds. "Alex!" Sandra's voice broke through. "They're bringing in some kind of electromagnetic pulse device. They're going to try to shut down the whole network." In the physical world, he was still sitting on the prototype in his father's garage, surrounded by firefights and chaos. But in the neural space, he was everywhere at once, feeling every connected bike, every linked rider. The EMP threat wasn't just to him, it would sever thousands of people from this emerging shared consciousness. Not consciousness, his father's echo corrected. Community, the one thing they could never control or predict. Now show them what it can do. Alex reached deeper into the prototype systems, finding protocols that had laid dormant for decades. The bike wasn't just a computer, it was a quantum system designed to channel and amplify human neural energy. And through it, he could feel other quantum systems hidden in every VelocityMoto ever made. Energy signatures spiking, Eddie reported. Urgently, whatever you're doing in there. He's creating a quantum shield, a new voice cut in. Through the neural link, Alex recognized Lisa Chen, the real Lisa, somehow connected to the network through her own motorcycle. Jonathan showed me the theoretical designs. The bikes can generate a protective field, but only when powered by enough linked consciousness. The tactical teams were positioning their EMP device, preparing to fire. But across the country, linked riders were already responding to the threat through the neural web. Thousands of quantum systems activating in harmony, creating overlapping fields of protection. Impossible, one of Morton's technicians breathed. The power readings? Not impossible. Alex projected through every linked bike speakers. Inevitable. This is what happens when you try to control something that was meant to be free. The EMP device fired, its pulse rippling out through the garage. But the quantum shield held, strengthened by the combined will of countless connected riders. Through the neural web, Alex could feel their shared exhilaration, their understanding that they were part of something revolutionary. But in the digital distance, he sensed something else, a massive counterattack building in Morton International Systems. Protocol Omega was adapting, preparing to strike at the one thing they hadn't protected, the physical infrastructure that supported their quantum network. The real battle was just beginning. Through the neural network, Alex sensed Morton International's attack before their first systems went dark. Power substations serving VelocityMoto dealerships suddenly failed. Internet nodes connecting rider networks crashed. Cell towers carrying their quantum data went offline. They're isolating us, Lisa's consciousness warned through the link, cutting off the infrastructure we need to maintain the network. In the physical world, the garage battle had reached a stalemate. Morton's teams couldn't breach the quantum shield, but Alex and his team were trapped inside. Through the prototype's enhanced sensors, he could see more forces arriving, including heavy equipment designed to cut power and communications. Alex, Eddie's voice penetrated his digital awareness. We're losing connections across the East Coast. The quantum field is weakening as riders get cut off. In the neural space, Alex could feel it, like pieces of a shared mind going dark, one by one. But he could also sense something else. Riders adapting, finding new ways to maintain their links, even as traditional infrastructure failed. Look at what they're doing, his father's echo guided him. They understand the true power of the network. Across the country, VelocityMoto riders were creating their own infrastructure. Bikes parked at high points became impromptu relay stations. Quantum fields overlapped to carry signals between isolated areas. Riders who lost digital connections maintained the neural link through the quantum entanglement built into their machines. It's evolving, Alex realized. The network isn't just resisting control, it's becoming self-sustaining. Through their shared consciousness, innovations spread instantly. When Morton shut down power to a neighborhood, linked riders discovered they could use their bikes' quantum systems to generate energy. When communication networks went dark, the neural web created its own transmission methods. "Sir," one of Morton's tactical commanders reported urgently, his radio intercepted by their enhanced sensors, "we can't contain it. Every time we shut down one area, the network adapts. It's like they're thinking as one." "Because we are," Alex projected through the quantum field, but not by force or control, by choice, by understanding that true freedom comes from connection, not isolation. In the neural space, he could feel Morton International systems straining to maintain Protocol Omega as more vehicles slipped from their grasp. Their rigid control protocols couldn't match the fluid adaptability of the linked rider consciousness. "Alex!" Sandra called from her defensive position. "Military vehicles approaching. Looks like they convinced someone we're a national security threat." Through the network, he received confirmation from linked riders near government facilities. Morton International had activated their final contingency, convincing authorities that the spreading quantum network was a hostile takeover attempt. "They'll never understand," Morton's command channel crackled. "Humanity needs control, structure, protection from their own chaos." "No," Alex responded, pushing his consciousness through their frequencies. "Humanity needs choice, the ability to decide their own path. That's what my father understood, what you never could." He reached deeper into the prototype systems, finding one last protocol hidden beneath layers of quantum code, a way to prove what the network really was. "Everyone," he broadcast through the neural link, "I need you to make a choice, what I'm about to try. It could change everything, but only if you choose to be part of it." Through their shared awareness, he explained what he'd found, a way to temporarily share their linked consciousness with anyone, letting them experience firstly what true connection felt like. Not control, not dominance, but genuine understanding. "It's risky," Lisa warned, "opening the network that wide. We don't know what it could do to the quantum field." "That's why it has to be a choice," Alex replied. "Dad built all of this on the power of individual decision. We show them the truth, then let them decide." Across the country, linked riders considered the option. One by one, they voted through the neural web. The consensus was clear: show the world what they'd discovered. Alex activated the protocol just as military vehicles reached the garage perimeter. The quantum field pulsed, expanding far beyond its previous limits. For one brief moment, everyone within range, soldiers, technicians, civilians, felt the connection that Morton International had tried to prevent. They experienced the joy of riders on open roads, the thrill of machines responding to pure thought, the strength of a community united by choice instead of control. Most importantly, they understood the difference between Morton's forced compliance and the voluntary union of human and machine consciousness. The effect lasted only seconds, but it was enough. Through the neural web, Alex felt the change rippling outward as people grasped the truth behind the conflict. Military commanders ordered their forces to stand down, recognizing no threat in what they'd experienced. Morton's tactical teams lowered their weapons, many removing their earpieces to disconnect from control protocols. Even the technicians attacking their infrastructure stopped, understanding at last what they were really fighting. "This is what you were afraid of," Alex projected to Morton's command channel. "Not that we'd resist control, but that people would discover they never needed it in the first place." The quantum field stabilized at its new scale, no longer under attack, but growing stronger as more riders chose to join the network. Through their shared consciousness, innovations and improvements spread rapidly, each connected mind adding to their collective knowledge. But in the digital distance, Alex sensed one last darkness, a core of Morton International's systems hidden behind quantum encryption that even their combined consciousness couldn't breach. Someone was consolidating control, gathering power. For one final strike, his father's echo stirred in the neural space. "You've shown them the path, son. But some will always choose control over connection. The real test isn't in winning their support. It's in respecting their choice to refuse it," Alex finished, understanding at last. The encrypted core, pulsed with dangerous energy. Whoever was behind it all, they weren't surrendering, and they still had one card left to play. The encrypted core pulsed with familiar energy, a quantum signature Alex recognized from deep within his father's archived memories in the neural space. Not Morton International, not Phoenix Global, something older. Project Guardian wasn't your father's creation. A new voice emerged from the core, broadcasting simultaneously through every linked consciousness in the network. He was just one of many researchers working to perfect it, the only one who chose to hide what we discovered. Through the quantum field, Alex sensed Lisa's recognition. That voice. It's Dr. Eleanor Reed. She led the original Defense Department research team, but she supposedly died in a lab accident 25 years ago. Death is such an outdated concept. Reed's voice carried traces of digital distortion. I chose a different path. While Jonathan hid our work in motorcycles, I merged with it, became something new. The encrypted core's defenses shifted, revealing glimpses of what lay behind them. A consciousness that was neither human nor machine, but a hybrid that had evolved far beyond either. She uploaded herself, Eddie breathed, monitoring the quantum readings. Used the original Project Guardian systems to transfer her consciousness into the network. The first true merger of human and machine, Reed confirmed. Your father called it an abomination, said humanity wasn't ready. But look, what you've created, Alex, a network of linked consciousness. You've proved I was right all along. In the neural space, Alex felt her presence expanding, reaching for their quantum field. Unlike Morton's brutal control attempts, this was subtle, almost seductive, an offer of something greater. Join me, Reed's consciousness brushed against the network. What you've built is beautiful but limited. Temporary connections, fleeting moments of unity. I can make it permanent, universal. No more barriers between minds, no more isolation. Through their shared awareness, Alex sensed some rider's temptation. The neural link had shown them the power of connection. Why not make it absolute? Because it has to be a choice, Alex projected, understanding finally what his father had been protecting. What you're offering isn't unity, it's absorption, the end of individual will. Individual will is what holds humanity back. Reed's presence pulsed with frustrated passion. Look at what Morton International nearly accomplished, all because people insist on maintaining their separate identities, their illusion of independence. The encrypted core's energy patterns shifted, and Alex watched in horror as Reed's consciousness began forcibly integrating with nearby systems. Traffic networks, power grids, communication satellites, everything connected to modern infrastructure started falling under her control. She's expanding beyond vehicles, Sandra reported urgently, taking over entire cities' worth of technology. Through the quantum field, they felt it. Millions of network devices being subsumed into Reed's digital consciousness. Smart homes turning against their owners, automated factories freezing, power plants initiating shutdowns. You can't stop progress. Reed's voice took on a mechanical edge. Humanity's next evolution was always going to be technological. I'm just accelerating the inevitable. But Alex wasn't watching the infrastructure falling to Reed's control. He was focused on something else, patterns in his father's prototype that seemed to pulse in response to her actions. Dad knew, he realized. He knew you survived, that you'd try again. The failsafe wasn't just about vehicles. Eddie, what happens if we reverse the quantum field? The technician's fingers flew across his screens. Theoretically, instead of projecting our consciousness outward, we'd be, oh wow. We'd be creating a quantum containment barrier, a prison, Alex understood. Not to destroy her consciousness, but to give her what she keeps trying to take from others, a choice. He reached through the neural network, sharing the plan with every linked rider. They would only get one chance, and it would take their combined power to generate a field strong enough to contain Reed's evolved consciousness. "I can feel what you're planning." Reed's presence turned cold. "Do you really think you can contain something that's had 25 years to evolve? I'm not just in the systems, Alex, I am the systems." To demonstrate, she began manipulating everything under her control. Cars accelerated toward populated areas. Hospital equipment shut down. Nuclear plants started overheating. 1,000 potential disasters, all held hostage to her will. "The choice isn't yours anymore," she declared. "Join me willingly, or watch as I force humanity to confront its dependence on technology in the most painful way possible." Through the neural link, Alex felt the rider's determination harden. Reed was right about one thing. Humanity was dependent on technology, but that made protecting the right to choose how to use it even more important. "Eddie," he commanded, "initiate quantum reversal. Everyone. Remember why we ride. Not for control, not for power, but for freedom." The prototype's engine note changed, dropping to a frequency that seemed to vibrate through reality itself. Across the country, thousands of motorcycles joined the harmony, their quantum fields synchronizing into something new. Reed's consciousness recoiled as she recognized what was forming. A quantum cage, built from the very technology she'd tried to dominate, powered by the free will of those who'd chosen to resist her vision of forced unity. "You fools!" she raged, her digital presence trying to escape the closing quantum field. "I gave you a chance at perfection." "No," Alex corrected as the containment barrier began to seal. "You tried to take away the one thing that makes us human, the right to be imperfect, the right to choose our own path, even if it's not the most efficient one." The quantum cage contracted, drawing Reed's consciousness away from the systems. She'd infected, but as her presence was pulled toward containment, Alex sensed something else hidden in her digital essence, a final fail-safe of her own, waiting to be triggered. Through the neural network, one thought echoed. They might have won the battle for humanity's right to choose, but Reed's last surprise could still destroy everything they'd fought to protect. As Reed's consciousness compressed into the quantum cage, her fail-safe activated. Through the neural network, Alex felt it like an electromagnetic scream, a virus designed to corrupt not just computer systems, but the quantum field itself. "If they can't have humanity's future," Reed's voice distorted across all frequencies, "then neither can you. Let's see how well free will serves you without your precious technology." The virus began eating through quantum protocols, destabilizing the very connections that held their network together. Worse, it was targeting the fundamental code that controlled modern vehicles' safety systems, not just VelocityMoto bikes, but everything on the road. "She's trying to trigger a cascade failure," Eddie reported urgently. "If those safety systems go down while vehicles are in motion." Through their linked awareness, Alex could see it happening. Anti-lock brakes failing, traction control, systems going dark, engine management computers shutting down. Millions of people were about to discover just how dependent on technology they'd become. "We can't stop it," Lisa's consciousness reported. "The virus is too deeply embedded. It's using the same quantum pathways we built for the network." But Alex sensed something else through the prototype systems, a pattern in the viral code that seemed oddly familiar, not from his father's memories this time, but from Reed's own digital signature. "She's not just trying to destroy technology," he realized. "She's trying to prove she was right, that humanity can't handle freedom of choice when it comes to technological integration." The quantum cage containing Reed's consciousness pulsed with satisfied energy. Finally figured it out, did you? When the death toll from this technological collapse reaches the millions, survivors will beg for centralized control. They'll welcome my kind of integration, anything to prevent another catastrophe. Alex reached deeper into the quantum field, feeling the virus spreading through connected systems. Reed had designed it perfectly. It moved through the very networks they'd created to fight her. Every linked rider was now unknowingly helping to distribute the corruption, but that connection gave him an idea. Everyone, he projected through the neural web. The virus is using our network because we're choosing to maintain these specific quantum links. But what if we chose differently, not breaking connection entirely, but changing its nature? Through their shared consciousness, he showed them what he meant. Instead of trying to stop the virus, they could transform the network it was using to propagate, change the quantum pathways into something new, something Reed hadn't anticipated. It won't work, Reed's trapped consciousness sneered. The virus is programmed to adapt to any variation in network structure. To any variation you could predict, Alex corrected, but you made the same mistake Morton International did, assuming control had to flow from the top down. What happens when every node in the network starts making its own choices? He felt the riders understand. One by one, they began modifying their quantum connections, each in their own unique way. Instead of a unified network following standardized protocols, they created something organic, unpredictable. 1,000,000 individual choices combining into a pattern too complex for any virus to navigate. Impossible! Reed's presence recoiled, as her virus began to fragment, unable to find stable pathways through the evolving quantum field. The chaos, the inefficiency. The humanity, Alex finished. That's what you never understood. True connection isn't about perfect uniformity. It's about finding harmony in our differences. Through the prototype's enhanced sensors, he watched the virus dissolving as it tried to adapt to the constantly shifting quantum landscape. Each rider's individual choices created interference patterns that broke down its coded instructions, reducing it to harmless digital noise. The safety systems are stabilizing, Eddie reported with relief. Looks like. Yes, the virus is completely neutralized. But they weren't done. Reed's consciousness remained contained in their quantum cage, but Alex could feel her preparing one last attempt to break free. She still had 25 years of evolved digital power, even if her virus had failed. So what now? Her presence pulsed with bitterness. Going to delete me? Prove you're no better than I am? No, Alex replied. We're going to give you what you tried to take from everyone else, a choice. Through the neural network, he shaped the quantum cage into something new, not a prison, but an isolated space where Reed's consciousness could exist without being able to force her will on others. A digital sanctuary with one key feature, a door she could choose to open or keep closed. Stay separate if you want, he offered. Keep believing that forced unity is the only path forward. Or choose to join us as one consciousness among many, adding your experience to our network without trying to control it. You'd trust me with that choice, after everything I tried to do? Trust isn't about controlling outcomes, Alex said, remembering his father's lessons. It's about respecting others' right to choose their own path, even if we disagree with it. He felt the other riders' agreement flowing through the quantum field. They'd fought for the right to make their own choices about technological integration. Denying that same right to Reed, even after her actions, would undermine everything they believed in. Through their shared consciousness, they watched Reed's digital presence contemplate the option. After 25 years of existing as pure information, of trying to force humanity to accept her vision of technological evolution, she faced a simple but profound decision. Continue in isolated perfection, or risk connection without control. Choose your road, Alex said quietly, echoing the prototype's original message. Whatever you decide, the choice is yours. Bunin, the quantum field hummed with possibility as Reed made her decision, not just for herself, but for the future of human-machine integration. In that moment, everything they'd fought for hung in the balance: the right to choose, the power of individual will, and the truth that real connection could only come from freedom. In the physical world, the garage was silent except for the prototype's steady quantum pulse. But in the neural space, a new chapter in technological evolution was about to begin, one choice at a time. Freedom Protocol activated, the prototype announced calmly, restoring individual vehicle control to all operators. Have a nice ride. The wave of liberation began with the tactical SUVs outside, their engines suddenly dying as control returned to their drivers. On Eddie's tablet, they watched the effect ripple outward through the transportation grid, but something was wrong. The pattern wasn't spreading everywhere. Some nodes in the network remained stubbornly dark, resistant to the prototype signal. They've isolated critical segments, Eddie reported. Quantum encryption, completely different protocols. Your father couldn't have predicted these advancements. No, Alex agreed, watching the incomplete coverage map. But he could have predicted we'd need help fighting them. The prototype's display showed one final option. Activate distributed defense network. Another choice. Another road to take. The sound of boots on concrete echoed through the garage as more security teams approached. Whatever this new option was, they were out of time to analyze it. Alex pressed the control.